It's 11:59 at Gun Owners Radio, and this is the Penn Patriot, music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, and another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind American lines, this is your song.
California Governor Gavin Newsom here to deliver my last State of the State address. I've skipped the last 4 of these speeches because, well, as you all know, California has been a complete shit show disaster. But since I am running for president, I desperately need the attention. I could tell you all the bad things. Like California has the highest cost of living of any state, and I've had the worst inflation rate of any governor since taking office. Or we have the worst schools, most homeless, worst roads, and worst job market, with an unemployment rate 22% higher than national. But we shouldn't dwell on such trivial things. I want you to appreciate all the things I do well. I'm sick of hearing about fraud in Minnesota. If you thought the fraud there was bad, I have just one thing to say. Bitch, hold my beer. No one does fraud, and no one can waste money faster than me. California has the highest fraud rates in all forms of welfare. Somali daycare fraud is the Little League's chump change. In California, I issued $30 billion in checks to fraudsters in our unemployment program, and some of them were to criminals who were serving time in prison. Speaking of prisons, I'm closing down prisons at a record rate, not because crime is going down, because I've granted early release to over 100,000 criminals since I took office. More than half of them have gone on to recommit crimes, likely more. But I've decided it's not a crime if you just decide to stop arresting and prosecuting criminals. My budget is a mess, but you got to give me credit for my creative math skills. I've cooked the books so the next governor ends up taking the hit, and that way I can still give illegal immigrants free taxpayer-funded health coverage and a cost of $13 billion a year. And if you want to dwell on any of the many, many problems in California, I have just one thing to say. Don't blame me. Blame Donald Trump, or blame climate change, or blame the Zodiac. But just don't blame me, because I don't do blame well. I managed to cheat on my wife with my best friend's fiance and did not take the blame. So if you think that I am going to take the blame for the dumpster fire our state has become under my watch, think again, you suckers. Not going to happen. Full stop. I would thank you for your time, but we both know it is you who should be thanking me.
All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Thank you for watching Gun Owners Radio. Don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. That really, really helps us. It helps promote the show. Check out our segments during the week. Share them. Let everybody know. It really, really, truly helps. So, Dakota, Alicia, how are you?
Fantastic.
Good.
Yeah, did you guys have a good week?
Yeah. How are you?
Fantastic. Anything exciting? It was such a slow news week.
Oh, it's so funny. My real week, not news related, was so busy that I'm like behind on news. So I know we're going to talk about some of the current news, and I feel like I'm going to be unusually unopinionated today because I just don't know what's been happening.
Here's how horrible social media is. When you just said my real week, I thought REEL. I was like, oh, what was in her reels? And then I'm like,
oh my God. No, my actual
clearly no
life.
longer a human being.
Yeah, my real REAL life was so busy that, I just haven't caught up on everything.
What'd you do? Anything exciting? Tell us something.
Nothing super exciting, but I've been working overtime. Yeah. So fun. So regular day shift plus 4-hour night shifts. So up until, 1 or 2 in the morning. So much fun. And then, I think I've mentioned it before, but we're doing like a full home renovation ourselves. And so we have been, painting our living room and dining room and kitchen. And we're finally starting to like get close to being done. But we basically brought everything down to like the concrete foundation, took all the popcorn ceiling off, put up, patched drywall and put up new drywall in a bunch of places. So we had to like skim coat everything and make it all look nice. So we're finally seeing the end of like the end of the horrible situation
I don't know
that
how you
has
do
been
it,
our
man.
home.
I can't do
But-
any of that. I am so not a DIY. I'm a get someone else to do it.
Yeah, we just didn't want to spend the kind of money we would have had to spend to
It's
have
amazing.
the renovation we want. So
I'm so jealous. I have so many friends that are so good at like they'll go over to somebody's house and they'll like put in new flooring. I'm like,
Yeah.
that looks so good. Like I'm so jealous
Yeah.
of being able to do that. So
well, maybe I'll send the producer some photos and we can show him. But yeah, we put in some flooring. And
did you
stuff.
do a lot of before and after?
Yeah, I've got a ton of before and
Okay,
after.
cool.
Yeah.
I like that. Alicia, what'd you
Yeah.
do? Give us something exciting you did this week.
We adopted a dog.
Oh wow,
that
I heard you adopted a
know.
dog.
I
so
know.
fun.
We tried one, didn't work out. We have an existing dog, and she's not a really dog friendly dog. So we had to kind of test out a few and find one that she was compatible with. We got one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What kind of? How do you describe this dog? How would you describe this dog?
a Mexico street dog, a little tiny.
That's not a
non-yippy-
flattering description.
I know. Well, that's what she is, though. She's probably going to be the healthiest dog on earth.
Oh, really?
We don't know what she is. She looks like she's got like the length and the dimensions of a dachshund,
Yeah.
but a little bit bigger. Looks terrier mixed with Chihuahua mixed with the milkman who was a dachshund. Maybe we
Right.
don't know. So
Well, good.
Yeah.
We'll bring in pictures of that.
yeah,
Okay, so let's talk about the elephant in the room.
Yes.
What happened in Minnesota? I got to tell you, it's I did a selfie video a couple of days ago. I don't know if you guys saw it, but the day of, within just a couple of hours of it happening, I saw video of 3 different angles. So there was a lot of information. It used to be, before everybody had a camera in their hand, it used to be like, hey, it takes 2 weeks or whatever, 2 months to do an investigation. We have to talk to witnesses, whatever. Now you instantly see things like immediately. And that's one thing. The other thing that just floored me was the reaction from Democratic leadership. Locally, Sarah Jacob immediately referred to the ICE agent as a murderer, which has a very specific, not just a connotation, it has a very specific legal definition. Juan Vargas, congressman, referred to him as a murderer. Mike Levin, AOC. AOC is so ridiculous.
well, it's not surprising.
She's the de facto leader of the Democratic Party, as far as I can tell. And she talked about what a horrible person the ICE agent was. And then one of the reporters, to their credit, said, well, actually, we're hearing that the lady weaponized her car, used her car as a weapon. And AOC immediately said, well, we got to go. We need an investigation. I'm like, wait a minute.
So is he a murderer, or do we need to investigate this situation?
You have enough information to know he's a murderer, but you need So, Tim Walz, the direct quote was that he nationalized he mobilized the National Guard, and then his quote was, he's at war with the federal government. That's Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, almost the vice president of the United States.
Again, not surprised.
It's unreal. So I'm seeing a lot of weird information. People have obviously picked sides. It's now a political narrative, and it's not a real conversation. I was hoping we could have a real conversation. So I did find what I think is the best video breakdown that I saw, and I watched a ton. And it's by the BBC. So I wanted to go through and talk about, there's a couple of bits of information. There's some stuff that people are getting wrong. Like, number one, there were a lot of people saying that she was simply driving through her own neighborhood. And that's not true. She was not just driving through her own neighborhood.
Right.
She was close to her neighborhood, but she was, by all accounts, factually harassing ICE agents. Like, that was her purpose, was to go at the very, maybe you don't disagree with the word harass, but she was there to disrupt what ICE was doing. In fact, the New York Post came out with a story where they did some research on her and found out that through her 6-year-old kid's school, she is a part of a mom's group And part of their purpose is to disrupt ICE and what they're doing in Minnesota. She was apparently a pretty far left-wing progressive extremist. Those aren't words that I use lightly. You've never heard me on this show just use those as a pejorative or throw those out for someone I disagree with. She actually left the country after Trump was elected and then came back, and now she's a part of what looks like a pretty extreme political group, which is centered around a charter school for children, which is bizarre. So we're not doing cakewalks and soccer practice anymore. We're now doing political extremism in these mom and me groups. Okay, so that's what she was doing. She wasn't simply driving through her neighborhood. She was there to disrupt ICE activities. She had a bunch of window decals that are left wing on her SUV. That doesn't mean that she deserves to get shot.
Right.
That doesn't really weigh into whether or not, it was a justifiable homicide or not. But anyway, so let's show the video. This is from the BBC. Like I said, I think they did a really good job.
These are the moments shortly before an ICE agent killed a 37-year-old woman on a residential street in Minneapolis. This agent can be seen walking round a burgundy car. The driver has their window open and appears to be waving cars past. A vehicle stops and 2 more agents get out and approach the woman's car, whose window is still down. You can hear an officer tell the woman to get out of the car.
Okay, pause it. What I want you to pay attention to is there's 2 things coming up. One is there's this narrative that she wasn't pointing her SUV at the ICE agent who shot her, that she was simply trying to get away. The other thing was that the ICE agent was at fault for putting himself in front of her vehicle. Okay, so think about those 2 claims. Okay, go ahead and roll it.
From this point, we've slowed the footage down. One of these agents approaches the driver's window and tries to open the car door, which appears to be...
What reasonable person who's simply driving through their neighborhood and isn't there to disrupt somebody wouldn't be responsive to law enforcement? Her window's down. She clearly heard. He's trying to get her out of the vehicle, which means, well, I'm not going to assign him any motive, but typically when a law enforcement agent is doing something like that, it's more than just a speeding ticket. There's some real concern for what's going on. But clearly she knew he was a law enforcement agent. She heard the commands, and she's still responding this way. That's not a reasonable thing. That's not a rational, reasonable thing for anyone to do in any situation involving law enforcement. Keep going.
Locked. At this point, the car starts reversing. The third agent has now moved round to the front of the car and
Pause.
appears...
Okay, so one of the big things that people are talking about is how, the agency would put you at fault if you put yourself in front of a vehicle. He didn't put himself in front of a vehicle. He is coming from the angle that is, in fact, in front of the vehicle, but he didn't jump in front of the vehicle. He's walking around to assist an officer who looks like he's trying to make an arrest or detainment or whatever, and that happens to be in the frontward direction of the vehicle. He's got a ton of clearance. There's nothing rational. There's no rational thought that, hey, if I walk this path, then I'm putting myself in harm's way.
Well, and just to that point, he didn't have another option around the vehicle because currently in this moment, the vehicle is reversing. Yeah. So it's not like he could have just gone around behind the car to get to his coworker, right? So it appears like he's trying to cross in front of the vehicle to get to the other side of the vehicle, not
right.
like he's trying to jump in front of a car at the last second as it's already in drive moving forward, so that Bingo. He had, which is kind of what I've heard a little bit online is like, well, you can't jump in front of a moving car and then claim self-defense. It's like, well,
he didn't do that.
He didn't jump in front of a car that was in drive. He jumped in front of, or he walked in front of a car that was in reverse in an effort to get to the other side of the vehicle.
And the front of that vehicle wasn't pointed at him when he started walking. She was backing up to get away from law enforcement. Not a rational thing to do. So go ahead.
To be filming on a mobile phone. The car starts to move forward and turn right. The
Pause.
agent...
Stop. Okay, did you see that?
Yep.
The wheels were pointed at least forward and probably even a little bit to the left still when you saw the tire spin out. She's proceeding forward now. He's right there, and he's drawing his gun because that vehicle is coming at him. Now, if you're not a gun owner, you don't understand the speed at which someone can draw from conceal or from a holster. He's not even concealed.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a well-trained officer. This isn't like, oh, it's impossible. How could he possibly, draw that quickly or whatever? Yeah, he can draw that quickly, particularly because he's not from concealment.
They're required to draw that quickly.
They're required to draw that quickly. How quickly can you draw from concealment and get shots on target? Not just draw from concealment.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly can you draw from concealment and get shots on target?
That last time, just under a second for me.
Yeah,
Just under a
good
second.
Just under a second.
A good draw to one first hit on target is under a second.
Under a second. I got to tell you, I don't know. I'm more like a second and a quarter, maybe a second and a half,
Which is still pretty good.
from concealment. But I'm not even talking about getting hits on target. We're just talking about this guy pulling his gun out. That's a fraction of a second. Of course, that's reasonable.
Right.
And by the way, like I said, wheels are pointed right at him, and we're spinning when this happened. So go ahead and continue.
In front of the car, draws his gun, and fires a first shot.
Stop. So what he did is he shot at somebody who was gunning their car that was pointed at him. Even if you say, hey, Mike, I don't agree that it was pointed directly at him, it was still proceeding in a forward fashion towards where he was.
Here's the thing. Whether the tires are turned directly at him or not, or attempting to get past him, who's looking at the tires? He sees the vehicle moving towards him.
Right. And that's
We're
an
not going to
important.
take the time to look at the tires.
And I'll tell you why that is, again, an important point. If it's been proven in court, if you accelerate towards somebody, particularly the one of the court cases I saw, it was actually a federal officer that somebody was accelerating towards, lethal force is justifiable.
All day long.
And it doesn't matter what her intentions were. So everybody's like, well, she was clearly just trying to, it doesn't matter what she was just trying to do. What matters was she accelerated her vehicle towards an officer, whether that was her intention or not. But when you're out disrupting ICE and you are trying to get away from them when they're trying to question you, detain you, whatever, you're playing a dangerous game. So, is she responsible for her vehicle? Hell yes, she's responsible for her vehicle. Does it matter what her intentions were when she pointed her vehicle and accelerated? No, legally it doesn't matter. What matters is that she accelerated her vehicle towards him, which means that lethal force is at least legal. Lethal force is at least legal. Okay, go ahead.
2 more shots can then be heard. From this angle, you can't see if the car made contact with the agent, but there is a video from another angle which appears to show the car may have made some form of contact with the agent before the first shot can be heard. The footage is filmed from a distance, so it's hard to be clear. After the shots, the woman's car veers off the road and crashes into a parked vehicle. In the aftermath, the officer who fired holsters his weapon and walks towards the crashed car.
Okay. Are you able to start it over? See if you can start it over. And I just want to point something out while we get up to a certain point. So the officer definitely got hit. By all accounts, got hit. And you can actually see it in the video if we're able to show it, that his feet were actually sliding on the ice because he was being pushed by the vehicle.
Yeah.
He definitely got hit. But he was authorized to use lethal force, legally authorized to use lethal force by department procedure, by legal precedent, before that even happened.
Yeah.
Before he actually even got hit. So the hit, we don't actually probably don't need to watch it again unless you guys want to point something out. Yeah. But being hit was just proof for the evidence we already had. He got hit, and that's because she was accelerating her vehicle. Now, I got to tell you, it sucks that she got shot. It's horrible. Yep. I wish, and I'm sure he wishes, that he could go back and make a different decision. But that doesn't matter. What matters is at the time his life was in danger and he was legally authorized and he was trained to defend his life and did exactly that. I'm positive she had no intentions on hurting anybody that day.
Right.
But again, she's a part of this extreme group doing extreme things. She got way in over her head. And it's ridiculous. You know, not one person has been, these groups that are popping up all over that are harassing ICE, not one time have they stopped somebody from being arrested or deported. It's completely ineffective. It's completely ridiculous. This isn't how the United States works. You can protest. You have the right to protest. Yep. You can air your grievances. You have the right to air your grievances. But going out and harassing law enforcement like this is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Well, it's also just dangerous if you don't know, what is justified and what's justified use of force on the, on the side of law enforcement. But even if you just look at the Minnesota state statutes for justifiable taking of a life, it's very clear that the intentional taking of a life of another is not authorized except when necessary in resisting or preventing an offense which the actor reasonably believes exposes either the actor or another, which in this case means that the other agent at the car door also would have been justified in the moment to take shots at her
to prevent
in defense
him.
of the other
Right.
officer, which isn't what happened in this case, but it says in the Minnesota statute that if the actor reasonably believes it exposes the actor or another to great bodily harm or death, which we can all agree a moving vehicle can cause great bodily harm or death, or if they're preventing the commission of a felony in their home, basically, is what the Minnesota law says.
Very similar to California law.
Very similar to California law. So the actor reasonably believed that he was exposed to great bodily harm or death. That's the way the law is written. If you have a problem with that, that's fine. People are going to have all sorts of opinions about what should be justifiable, what should be legal, all of that. But this is the current law in Minnesota, and that is what he is going to be judged based on.
Well, not only that, but I think people are looking at this like it's subjective, or at least a lot more subjective than it really is.
Right.
They're looking at this and going, hey, I didn't want that to happen, or that shouldn't have happened, or it's sad that that happened. Therefore, I think it should be illegal that it happened. But this whole situation was, and what he's being held to account, the standards that he's being held to, are a lot more objective than people, especially untrained people who've never owned a gun, never taken a class, don't have a CCW, have no reason to understand self-defense or the ethics or legalities of lethal force. They don't understand just how objective this situation really truly is.
I'm wondering too, if you think about it, ICE is federal, right? And in their state, law enforcement generally has a stand-down order. I wonder if the people have gotten used to behaviors and allowances and getting away with stuff and thinking that there's not going to be force leverage, that there's not going to be consequences, that they're going to be able to just do what they want to do, and therefore that maybe tinted some of their actions.
Yeah, that's an interesting
ICE
point.
does not have a stand-down order.
Well,
They do not.
I got to tell you, in
Not
a lot
that
of
they. Not. I mean. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
not at all. But the ICE agent was the victim,
Right.
and he defended himself.
Right.
But on a broader scale, the lady who made this decision, the lady in this car, was the victim of propaganda. I think that calling law enforcement, and specifically ICE agents, Nazis for the last year, and having an organized mothers group at a charter school, to disrupt their activities, I think tainted her opinion in a very unreasonable way. And I feel really bad. I wish, it's too bad that, cooler heads didn't prevail here. I wish that somebody could just stop it. Hey, wait a minute. Think about what you're doing here.
Yeah, and I think it's important too for people to realize that we might end up seeing more footage of this. We might end up seeing the view from the officer who is recording on his mobile phone or whatever he was recording on before he drew his firearm. That footage may show that she wasn't even aware that he had crossed in front of her vehicle. She may have been fully facing to the left, looking at the officer that was trying to open her vehicle door.
Yeah.
There could be so much more evidence that comes out on this, but none of that, even if she didn't know that she was driving towards an officer, that makes it more sad, sure, but that does not change the fact that he is most likely going to be found not guilty, and that was justifiable use of force. And unfortunately, I think there's going to be, riots and all sorts of things when that happens. But regardless of whether or not she was aware of what she was doing in that moment, she was driving a vehicle towards a law enforcement officer, and his life was in danger in that moment.
Yeah. Well, I'd say one last thing, and then we'll move on. But so he's not going to be tried criminally.
Right.
He's immune. He may be tried civilly.
Right.
I don't know. But I'm not looking at this, and I want to make this clear. I mean, I have not been shy about criticizing law enforcement. I certainly haven't been shy about criticizing federal law enforcement.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at this. There's nothing about this that's changed because he's law enforcement. This was a guy who was being attacked, who was being put in harm's way, and his life was being threatened, and he defended himself. And all the laws that apply to him as a federal agent apply to a civilian. There's nothing different about this because he's a law enforcement agent. A civilian wouldn't have been there, but, so putting him in the actual scenario is different. But the reality is he defended himself, and all the same self-defense laws and all the same ethics apply, and that's what I looked at. I looked at a guy who woke up and went to work, and somebody at work put his life in danger, and he successfully, legally, and ethically defended his life using lethal force. So I don't care that he's an ICE agent. I have opinions on ICE agents. I have opinions on federal law enforcement. I have opinion on law enforcement. But what I'm seeing is too many people taking their personal opinions, taking their political opinions, and trying to fit this into their political opinions rather than looking at this and going, hey, here are the actual facts of the case. Here's the real scenario here. So hopefully in the last couple minutes when we talked about this, that's exactly what we've done. But I feel like that's what I don't have a political filter on this. I'm looking at this as somebody who defended his life. And that poor guy went to work to earn a living, and his life was threatened, and he had to defend it, and now he's got to live with that. And that's the way I looked at it. Anyway, there you go. Any last words?
I agree. And as you stated, if there were to be any charges, it would be at a federal level, not state.
Yeah.
But you're correct in everything you stated.
Yeah, and I don't think there's going to be criminal charges, but I do think that often in these situations, there is some sort of like a review by the agency where they, whether they say, he is fit to go back to work, or they put him on paid administrative leave or whatever, like there's a process in which he is going to be investigated, and I think DHS is going to come out with some sort of a statement regarding this situation. And that's what I was referring to when I was saying, I think there will be riots, because they're going to say that he acted, that he used justified use of force, or I think that's what they're going to say. And I think when that happens, people who don't understand the legality and what is actually allowed in the law are going to be very upset, because their perception, so many people's perception of this is that this guy committed a cold-blooded murder and that he's going to walk free. And unfortunately, people just don't understand the law and the way that it works.
Yeah, no, there's a ton of value in walking through, like, hey, would this have stood up in court? Like, his immunity does make him different from a civilian. So,
right.
But there's a lot of value in going, hey, wait a minute, was this legal? Would this have stand up in a criminal court? And absolutely 100%. In fact, I don't think a district attorney would even take the case. I think, this is a clear, after seeing the video and reviewing it, I don't think it takes a whole lot more investigation to understand this is a clear-cut case of legal self-defense, using lethal force. Again, I understand his decision. I wish, and I'm sure he wishes he didn't make it. I don't know. I think that both people would still be alive, but he didn't know that when she was putting his life in danger, and he had to make, a fraction of a second decision to defend his own life.
Yeah.
And again, whether or not both people would still be alive doesn't factor into whether or not you can use lethal force. What matters is she put his life in danger, and he could have been killed, and he defended himself with lethal force. So
That's it.
I'm still appalled. I got to tell you, if new details come out and everything I've just said or any part of what we just discussed is different, we'll bring it back up. I don't have a problem with being wrong. But I do think a big part of this story that's being buried is, and the reason I wanted to go over this is because I'm watching political leadership completely misuse this information and try to get a political narrative out there rather than do what they should be doing as leaders. And I just think that's appalling. I think it's appalling. I'm not partisan. I think the Democratic Party needs to get punished in November. They are unhinged.
Santa needs to bring him coal.
It is ridiculous the way they're behaving. So there you go. Here's our analysis.
When your rights are on the line and the fight gets real, you need a lawyer who knows the deal. From gun laws to courtrooms, he'll stand by you. John Dillon fights for the red, white, and blue. John Dillon defending your rights, keeping bare arms with truth and might. From GVROs to self-defense calls, Dillon Law Group, he fights for us all. When freedom's under fire, who you gonna call? Dillon Law Group, justice for all. DillonLawGP.com.
So we're all familiar with some of the things that have happened with the NRA over the past few years. And this is something that I've talked about on Gun Owners Radio. And honestly, I've gone back and forth, but I really, truly, over the past 6-8 months, have come to appreciate and support all the changes that the NRA has made. There was an old guard in leadership, and they were doing things that most people completely disagreed with. And there is now a new guard of people who have taken over the board and have installed new leadership, replaced Wayne LaPierre with Doug Hamlin, and they're doing fantastic work. But the NRA has a large board. In fact, there are 76 people on the board. So getting rid of some of the old guard and replacing them with new, fresh faces who are, prioritizing the right things is taking some time. What we've found is that the old guard is leaving NRA and going to a different organization that is very closely tied to NRA. That organization is called the Friends of the NRA. Now, Friends of the NRA is their charitable organization. It is a charitable organization. NRA is a not-for-profit, and they do what everybody knows the NRA to do. Friends of NRA and NRA are two completely different entities. Clearly, Friends of NRA was set up to support the things that NRA wants to do, but they are completely different entities. They're as different as Burger King and McDonald's. They're as different as Nike and Adidas. They're completely different entities. However, they're very much tied in a lot of different ways, including some of the mission that they're trying to do. The Friends of the NRA are known for having fundraising dinners and then using the money that they raise in order to support programs like teaching Boy Scouts how to shoot, that sort of thing, teaching women to shoot, charitable purposes. They raise money for charitable purposes that help people learn how to shoot and continue to, keep and bear arms. That's basically what they do. The NRA actually hires people to do fundraisers for the Friends of the NRA. Now, Friends of NRA has a completely separate board from NRA. They're totally separate. But what we're finding is that some of the people who were in the old guard with the NRA are jumping ship and going to the Friends of the NRA. I just read an article that is extremely fascinating to me on bearing arms, and it was written by our good friend John Petrolino. It turns out that the NRA has filed a lawsuit against the Friends of the NRA. And it's for very fascinating reasons. So I wanted to bring John Petrolino on to talk about what's going on, to talk about his article. So without further ado, John Petrolino, how are you, man?
Michael, it's great to be here with you today. Thank you for having me. So I really appreciate your time.
Yeah. Now, okay. So you heard my intro. Did I paint the picture accurately? Is there anything in there that you want to correct or maybe
Absolutely.
clarify?
Yes, I do. So you're hitting close to the nail. But
Okay.
the specific words that we need to understand here is it's the NRA Foundation. Okay, so Friends of the NRA is kind of like a shell, and that's owned by NRA also. So the NRA Foundation is the 501c3. The NRA is the 501c4. And the Friends of the NRA that you're talking about, like the Friends of the NRA dinners, and all of that money that would go to the NRA Foundation. I'm actually very glad that you brought this up the way you did, because I just spoke to sources not too long ago, today, specifically about Friends of the NRA, because I said this has been the number one thing that people have been commenting about. Friends of the NRA dinners. And the word that I got from my sources at the NRA is do not panic. The NRA proper, the 501c4 NRA that we know and love, is not wanting to see the end of the Friends of the NRA dinner. They're not wanting to see the end of any of that. Now, how that money gets siloed and what they do with it, the NRA is going to have full control of that. So it doesn't necessarily have to go into the foundation. So the Friends of the NRA dinners, they're fixing this. I was given information. Hope the board is meeting right now. So the NRA board has board meetings coming up this week. It'll be, by the time this airs, the meetings will have happened already or be almost completely done.
Okay, so that's an important distinction. So we're actually talking about the NRA Foundation. Let's make sure we get the terminology correct. So the NRA, the foundation is really what we're talking about. That is the different entity.
Correct. So when you hear Friends of the NRA, you're thinking about the dinner. Kind of look at that as a boilerplate, and then that money was going to the NRA Foundation, right? So that's the C3. And that's where the account is. So the foundation is just basically, for all intents and purposes, an account, right?
Parking lot for money.
Bingo.
Yeah.
So everything that you said is right, except for the part about the Friends of the NRA.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so
you know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, that's perfect. I'm glad you clarified. So what's the crux of the issue here? NRA is suing NRA Foundation. How explain it like I'm 5 years old. Why are they doing it? What's the crux of the problem?
Exactly. My kid even asked me, he says, well, why is the NRA suing the NRA? It's like, well, that's a good way to put it. So the NRA Foundation was formed in the 1990s as a 501c3 to basically give, the charitable, tax benefits to people who, donate to the organization.
Sure.
That money was specifically earmarked for certain programs. And all of this is enumerated in the lawsuit that the NRA has. It's all enumerated in their press release as well. So things like Eddie Eagle and some of the other education and other programs like that, some of the state programs, and that money would come from the foundation to give that to those programs. Now, I've been following this going back to well before October of 2025. October is when I started to really start to dig into it. But I've been following this, probably since mid 2025. And there was a lot of rumors that what was happening is that the foundation, which they were also subject to their own lawsuit in Washington, D.C. Okay. Yeah. So that's a whole nother thing that people really aren't aware of. that's all been finalized and everything like that. So there was rumors that the foundation was withholding money from those programs because the directors, as you accurately pointed out, we ended up with these factions on the BOD. For lack of a better term, parties. And you had the NRA 2.0 and you had the strong NRA.
Mm-hmm.
NRA 2.0 is more of what you would call your reform-minded, candidates or your reform-minded directors that were trying to change things, get away from how the NRA got into the mess that they got themselves into with Wayne and enabling that. So
change direction, modernize, get away from some of the ways they were spending money before.
Correct.
And in a lot of ways, getting back to more of a basic, like, hey, here's why we're here. Here's what we're supposed to be doing. That kind of mindset.
Correct. So part of this had to do with now, like, Doug Hamlin got elected into the position of the executive vice president, the head of the NRA, right? Which is actually like an officer position, but he's a paid guy, basically acting as the CEO of the NRA. So that's something that the board of directors elects, to serve.
Yep.
Wayne LaPierre stepped down in early 2024, I believe it was. Okay. So when all of the 990s and the filings that came out on the 2024 NRA, which would have come out mid towards the end of 2025, that still had Wayne fingerprints on it. I think that's very important because there were things in some of those financial reports that people were saying, the NRA is still up to the garbage. And I know we're kind of digressing here a little bit, but this is all tied together because you had this scenario where Ronnie Barrett, who was a NRA director up until a few days ago, he just resigned from the board, and it's alleged that he's on the board of trustees for the foundation. But anyhow, he was facing off against Doug Hamlin for this NRA EVP position. Okay. Doug Hamlin wins the election. Now he's acting as the CEO of the NRA. Now you fast forward to this last slate of board elections. You had the formalization of these movements where there was two websites, and that's where my reporting came in because I stayed away from all of this until you could really untangle it in a unbiased way. And you have the strong NRA and the NRA 2.0, and I went to both factions and I talked to both factions about everything that was going on.
So before you go any further,
sure.
After the lawsuit and everything was finalized and there was a decision and Wayne LaPierre had to leave, what was the difference of opinion between the old guard and the new guard? Was it just boiled down to the new folks wanted Doug and the old folks wanted Ronnie Barrett, or what, you know what I mean? Like why couldn't, I don't understand like what the old folks wanted to continue doing, that the new folks were like, no, we're not going to do that. What was as you were talking to people, boil down what the biggest difference of opinion between the old guard and the new guard was?
I think it's a matter of some of those old guard members were participating in what enabled Wayne to do what Wayne did, right? And they weren't willing to move the organization after Wayne left. Some might argue that when the lawsuit ended in New York, that the judgment from the judge wasn't proper and that some of the judgment should have went further. So, for example, Wayne LaPierre, I believe, was banned from serving on a C4 or C3 or not for profit for like a period of 10 years or something like that, right? He's barred. I don't know the exact particulars. It could have been just the NRA. I don't remember, right? But there are other people that were implicated in this lawsuit that probably should have gotten the same treatment if you ask for that opinion among people that are following this. So that's like, consider that a group. So now the NRA 2.0 movement was looking to get rid of everything that enabled that. And part of that includes committee assignments. So if you're at the NRA, and this is something that I reported on earlier I guess it would have been 2025, excuse me. There's like text strings that ended up in the evidence of the lawsuit where they're talking about stripping people of committee assignments if they didn't fall into line and do what they wanted them to do. This was the officers of the NRA having these conversations via email or text. It's evidence. Like, you can read this. This
Right.
is public
It's not speculative.
record. So,
It happened.
right.
It's right there. Yeah.
And they're saying, we need to do things like neutralize issues, and we need to reassign people. And basically, if you didn't have a committee assignment, you pretty much had no power on the NRA board. So somebody that I spoke to on background just this week about different things, actually not this specifically, but NRA business, they were saying that, for a lot of these strong NRA members, it's not fun for them to even come and participate in this stuff anymore because all of their friends are powerless. They don't have the same clout that they used to. The new kids moved in, and there was a plurality. Even if there were X number of dedicated NRA 2.0 directors, there was also X number of unaffiliated people that voted with NRA 2.0. So the new guard had a functional supermajority anyhow, or at least they had a functional, damn near functional supermajority. They had a majority on paper. I believe they were close to a majority. But after this last election that's coming up, they were going to have a functional supermajority either by name or, just who would vote and align with them. I mean, that writing was on the wall.
So the new folks simply were saying, hey, look, if you were here when all these problems happened and you were in a leadership position, we think you should lose your leadership position within the NRA. We want the new folks to come in. The mistakes were made, and we're not willing to allow you to say, hey, I'll do better next time. We need new people in. And the old people said, no. We want to stay put. We want to continue to be in power. Everything, let's let bygones be bygones. So that was kind of the biggest difference between the two factions with the NRA board of directors, right?
Right. And so you could see some of this in real time at the last NRA meeting. So I believe the way the committee assignments go is the NRA president is the one that helps line up the committee assignments, who's on the committees, who's the chairs, and that type of thing. So that includes also like the nominating committee. So in the last NRA election, you had the board of directors election. Then you had, after that, the officers election. So this is going to complicate things even further. So now the directors had to elect their line of their officers. So you had the nominating committee that I believe recommended against advancing Bill Bockenberg up, who was holding a position, and bumping him out and keeping Bob Barr as the president. Well, Bill Bockenberg ran against the wishes of the NRA nominating committee for the officer line, and he ended up unseating Bob Barr as the NRA president. So that is another example of how this stuff went down.
Yeah. So basically the new folks are saying, hey, old folks, you don't get to have as much. You can be on the board if you get elected, but we're not going to give you a bunch of power. We need to, change things for the better, and keeping people in power who were there when things were bad is not a good formula for changing things in the future. So
Right.
okay,
And the Bockenberg election, just to be clear, I think he was could have changed as a matter of 4 votes. So this wasn't like a huge groundswell. But once Bockenberg got into that position, now what you've seen is resignation after resignation after resignation of strong NRA or old guard.
the old guard.
directors.
So they realized, they said, hey, the new president is really not going to give us any power. So they started resigning by the day. I think in the last couple of weeks, there have been like a dozen people that have resigned. Is that accurate? Something like that?
Last couple of weeks, there's been a bunch. I think since the summer, there's been, like a double-digit amount of resignations, and some of them are surprising. Excuse me. And up until, November, December, up until maybe December, I was keeping up with many of those directors that were resigning. I reached out to many of them for comment, and the only one that commented was Sandra Froman, and I believe Sandra Froman is not associated with the NRA Foundation in any capacity.
Because a lot of the board, a lot of the NRA, a lot of the folks on the NRA board of directors started going over to the NRA Foundation.
So there was the allegations that the foundation was withholding funds, and this is all stuff that I was looking into, like I said, maybe October. There's also allegations that the foundation changed the bylaws. So the NRA Foundation changed their own bylaws so that the trustees of the foundation are elected and selected by the other trustees of the foundation. Whereas previous to that, the board of directors of the NRA proper would select and elect the trustees for the foundation. At least the NRA proper had a hand in it. So there was representation. The members would elect directors, directors would elect officers, and then from that pool, the foundation trustees would be appointed and elected. So the trustees of the foundation on their own changed. There was allegations of that, which reading the lawsuit, now they're saying that it looks like it's apparent that those bylaw changes, I'd say, happened, but they didn't happen because they weren't legal. So
okay, so complaint number 1 from NRA is NRA Foundation changed the bylaws so that NRA has no say in who serves on the board of NRA Foundation.
I think complaint number 1 is that now the NRA Foundation is using the NRA trademark and the NRA name outside of the scope of what they're allowed to, because they're not keeping up with their fiduciary responsibilities.
Right. So NRA is basically saying, hey, look, if they're not going to let us have any kind of say with leadership, and they're going to withhold funds, then they're not going to get to use our name and logo and trademark and all that other stuff, right?
Right. And that's what the lawsuit's basically alleging and stating. So I reached out to the foundation 3 times last year. So again, this is like October, November, December timeframe.
Mm-hmm.
The first query that I put out, and this is on their website, there's no media, there's no media request. There's just the web form, right? Mm-hmm. My first request was I wanted to get added to their press distribution list. And that's a common thing. Like, I'm on your press distribution list. I'm on NRA proper. I'm on SAF. I'm on, Firearms Policy Coalition, right? My inbox is a nightmare. I wanted to add to that and get the foundation press releases, because I was seeing more and more press releases come out of the foundation in that time period. And I was seeing them on the Shooting Wire. It's an aggregate of press releases. And I saw the foundation was doing.
Yeah, I saw. So I saw a press release about a month ago. I think it was early December, might have been November, where they said, "Hey, we just want to remind everybody, we're not NRA. We're different from NRA." And I reached out to the head of the foundation, Tom King, and said, hey, come on the show. I'd like to talk to you about that. And there was a little bit of back and forth. He expressed interest, but then he ghosted me. But I was curious to see, like, what's the reason for that press release? Like, why would you decide to just randomly say, hey, we're different and we're going to do our thing, and that's how it's going. And then this lawsuit made that make a little bit more sense, I think. Not much more sense. I still am not quite sure what they're thinking over there, but
So my sources said that they were trying to negotiate with the foundation to solve these problems amicably for months. And like I'm saying, like I was looking into this like October. So this is, if I knew about it and I was looking into it in October, and I knew about the rumors since the summer, how long has this been going on? Probably a while, right? Hard to say. But I started to see these releases come out of the foundation through this newswire, and I wanted to get added to their press distribution list. I got completely ignored. Nobody, responded to me.
What are some of the what else, is there anything else in the complaint from NRA as far as part of the lawsuit that we should bring out? Because so far it's that, hey, you guys aren't following the bylaws. You're using trademarks, in a way that we don't authorize, and then of course they're not distributing money like they said they should. Is there anything? What else? Is there anything else in the complaint that we should?
If you read the press release and the complaint from the NRA, it actually outlines, like, in their own narrative, the story about how you have these scorned directors that are angry,
Yeah, right.
and they're acting out about it, So there's that. But I mean, like, the key thing here is the money. They're not releasing the money, and they're not. They changed the bylaws, so they removed the NRA membership's voice from the selection process. And again, I can't reiterate enough. Those of you who are involved in Friends of the NRA dinners, I've been told they're looking into this. Do not panic.
Yeah.
The NRA is not taking a position. Don't support Friends of the NRA dinners. I can't speak on behalf of the NRA, but my sources are saying there's no cause for alarm at this point, and there might be an answer in as many as a few days. Maybe next week, who knows? But there will be an answer of how this is going to be reconciled, because nobody at the NRA wants to see that go away. And what's important to understand is there's only 2 paid employees of the NRA Foundation, and their executive director, and then one of the officers that I think it's either the secretary or the treasurer. I think it's the treasurer. I believe it's Charles Cotton. And I say I believe, I don't know, because when I reached out my second time to the foundation asking them for a list of their trustees and their officers, they did not respond to that request.
Gotcha. And just
okay,
I'll tell you what. Let me read a little bit too from the actual complaint. This is from the actual lawsuit. This is the third item that they're as a part of their complaint. And just to give people an idea of the scope of this thing, the NRA's other claims concern the foundation's ongoing and threatened misuse of approximately $160 million raised by or with NRA, and through solicitations representing to donors that their contributions would be used to support NRA's charitable activities, including its education programs and financial support of mission-aligned local nonprofit organizations. I just want to make sure people understand. They're talking about $160 million, and it's actually more than that the organization has and controls. So this isn't a few bucks here and there. This is the NRA saying that, hey, foundation, you're telling people that, you're going to support these NRA aligned programs. You're taking $160 million off of donors, and then you're not following through with what you said you're raising money for. So this isn't just sour grapes or whatever. This isn't just NRA saying, hey, we're unhappy with the changes. I mean, this is a legitimate complaint of you're saying one thing and you're not doing it, and we could suffer because of it. So in other words, if they're taking all this money, the foundation is taking all this money, and they're not distributing it in the way that they say that they're going to distribute it, people aren't going to go, hey, NRA Foundation. People are going to say, hey, NRA. You know, it's going to give the NRA a black eye because it's such a similar name. And obviously people are much more familiar with NRA. Heck, at the beginning of this interview, I got Friends of NRA and NRA Foundation confused. And I used to do these fundraising dinners for Friends of the NRA. It's confusing.
Yep.
So this is a really serious issue. This isn't just, you know, some kind of, you know, chipping around the edges like, hey, what's the big deal thing.
No, absolutely. And the reason I brought up the fact that there's only 2 employees of the foundation, and then, you know, whoever they use as contractors, but there's only 2 employees. So those Friends of the NRA dinners that you're talking about, Mike, the people that run those are NRA employees.
Right. NRA,
so the NRA controls all of that. That faucet is controlled by the NRA proper. From what I understand. So if they're raising the money under the Friends of the NRA, they're going to be the ones that say what bank account it goes to, right? So it's not like the foundation has a team of employees that they're going to be able to send out to do like fundraising, to do like anything.
Yeah.
All right, they might hold this carrot over their head in the tune of however many hundreds of millions of dollars, and that's awful, and it's being litigated, but the mission's going to be able to persist. So just people don't get nervous about that is just the message, because that was the number one thing that I saw in comments, and then I wanted to get some information on background on that, and my sources said this is being looked into very carefully. They're going to figure it out. I don't know when. So
don't use this as an excuse to stop doing good things.
Bingo. Exactly.
You know, don't use this as an excuse to do nothing.
Yeah.
Like continue.
If you're
to do
planning
good things.
if you're planning a dinner in, you know, August or September or whatever, keep planning your dinner. Like this will all be straightened out.
Do you know? Okay, so they're not distributing this money according to NRA's their complaint. They're not distributing this $160 million the way that they're supposed to. Is there any indicator, like, have you heard from anybody, any kind of speculation as to what's their end game? What are the NRA Foundation folks trying to accomplish by, you know, what are they going to do?
I don't know. And again, I've contacted them multiple times to get answers to this. Like, let's have a conversation about this. And the third piece of correspondence that I had with them that I sent was, again, who are the trustees? Who are the officers? Who are the employees? Did you change the bylaws? I did ask that question and it got ignored. And then, so I've been giving them an opportunity to communicate with me, and it's been mom. And then just, you know, a few days ago when this story was breaking is when I reached out to Tom King myself. And, you know, Tom King eventually got back after my article ran and went to press. And then there was an edit in there that said, you know, that we did get a comment from Tom basically saying that there was no comment, and he would get back to me if he had another comment. And I'm going to put this out there to Tom, to any trustee of the foundation, anybody that wants to talk to me. My email address is john@thepenpatriot.com.
Yeah.
And I'll get on the phone with you, and I'm happy to talk to whoever at the foundation on the record, off the record, on background, or if you want to blow some whistles, whatever you guys want to do. But there's no information whatsoever really coming out. There was a statement that I read from their press department that I was given just about an hour ago, and I wasn't really given permission to distribute it myself, but it's out there, or it might be out there now. And it was a fluffy response to somebody else's query. nothing of any substance, right? So
Okay.
what actually is going on at the foundation, I cannot say. I'm asking.
Yeah.
They're not
Okay.
talking.
Is
And,
there any, have you seen any evidence, or has there been any evidence presented, or any kind of speculation, or, is this money being shifted somewhere else? Is someone driving around in a new Corvette, or is there, you know what I mean? Is there any kind of like, well, hey, they're clearly spending money over here, anything like that?
I saw a release a couple of months ago about some money being sent to a deer processing feed the hungry program somewhere in the Midwest. So they're like trickling, and that was in the tune of like $100,000 or $200,000. I don't know, but that was part of the mission, right? So they're putting out these grants, and that's why I said I was getting more and more interested, because I was seeing more and more press releases come out where they're giving out grants, and it was just like, I'm not saying they were strange grants, they weren't strange, but if the money is supposed to go to Eddie Eagle or whatever other programs listed, I don't know them off the top of my head. And it's not necessarily, or the NRA is alleging that money's not going there, but they're giving the money to process deer meat to feed the hungry. What is closer to the mission of the NRA Foundation? I don't know. Like, right?
And again, to what end? It really is baffling. Everybody's jumping ship and going to the NRA Foundation. Okay. But I'm just wondering, like, what do they think they're going to do over there? And what it's so baffling. It's so bizarre.
We don't know how big their board is. We don't know who's on their board. Months ago, when I started looking into this, when I put out my first query to the foundation, I also put out a query to Secretary John Fraser of the NRA proper. And Secretary Fraser did not respond to me, which is not like him. He's responded to every single piece of correspondence I've ever sent him. He's always been very, amicable, and he's been great about queries and me asking for things, and he's never really snubbed me,
Yeah.
So that request he didn't answer, but I'm led to believe, and speaking to other people on background, their suspicion is he didn't respond because he doesn't know, or there's no official listing of it. And if you're a foundation donor, listen to me. If you've donated money to the NRA Foundation, that NRA Foundation's donor bill of rights says you are entitled to know who are on that board of trustees. So if you want to put in a query and find out, and you're a donor, you're owed that. Just keep that in mind. And I don't know why they're keeping this so secretive. I don't know why they're not responding to simple requests for information. I'm not being hostile. There's nothing hostile about this. I'm reporting. Sure. I'm asking questions, and I'm reporting the news. And when I had news to report, because I've been following this story for so long, there's people that I've been interviewing for so long. The only thing I had to report was the fact that a lawsuit was filed. And the lawsuit that's filed is just it's just fortifying the speculation that a lot of people had.
2025 is going to go down in the Second Amendment world as the year everyone screwed up communication. I mean, there are so many different groups, organizations, companies, whatever. It seems like if they would just communicate, they wouldn't be in so much trouble. I want to read this from your article. Something Hamlin emphasized is that the lawsuit would not affect any association or foundation staff members. Quote, "This is a leadership issue, and the bad behavior of a select few do not reflect on the organization as a whole," Hamlin said. He further asserted that the actions of certain leaders at the foundation have left us no choice other than to litigate. I wonder if this isn't malfeasance, but it is incompetence. In other words, maybe there is no bad plan. Maybe they don't have some kind of ulterior motive. Maybe they just don't really know what they're doing, but the addition of, if my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is the first time in a long time they've had 2 dedicated employees working for the foundation. So there's less of an excuse for being incompetent. Am I stating all that accurately?
Maybe I have never followed it so closely,
Yeah.
because they always did what they were supposed to do. So when do you start looking into these things when it's like there's rumors, and that's this, it all started with a whisper, right? And that's when I started to dig into this. And then that's how I got Mr. Goldstein on the record, one of the directors. That interview with Mr. Goldstein, that goes all the way back weeks and months ago. I've been sitting on a lot of this research waiting for something to happen. I didn't think that this is what was going to happen, but it's what happened. So, this is where the breadcrumbs took me. And again, anybody at the foundation that wants to talk to me, like, I'll talk to you, I'm watching closely. There's speculated members who are still trustees or speculated to be trustees of the foundation that are still NRA board members. There's a couple of them left. I don't know how many. And that's going to be interesting to see if any of them resign from the board of directors proper. And that's going to,
As a result of this lawsuit?
I don't know if it's a result of the lawsuit as much as it is the mass exodus of maybe there is something very, very bad going on. And there's a lot of speculation. Like you said, is it incompetence or is it malfeasance? And you're the second person today that had said and used the word incompetence to me when talking about foundation matters. I'm just trying to get answers, right? I don't know which is which, and I guess time will tell, right?
Yeah. Okay, so let's recap a couple things. So NRA proper has filed a lawsuit against NRA Foundation, they're the charity, and they're saying, hey, you guys are using our trademark to raise money. You're using our name and our resources to raise money, and you're promising that the money is going to be used for something, but now you're not distributing the money in the way that you say it's going to be used. A lot of the concern is because a lot of the old guard board of directors of NRA proper are going over to NRA Foundation, and it's seeming like it's some kind of retribution or sour grapes or something like that. And but NRA wants to be clear, hey, these fundraising dinners that people work so hard on, so many volunteers work hard to do these fundraising dinners, and people go and donate and have a good time. Continue to do that. Your money is not being wasted, but NRA needs to sort out and figure out exactly what's going on at NRA Foundation. And like we just said, we're not sure if it's malfeasance or incompetence, but somebody's got to right the ship, and NRA has tried communicating with them, but they've hit a stone wall. Does that pretty much sum everything up?
It does. And and without speculating too far on what the NRA may or may not do, with the dinners and the fundraising, like there's going to be, I see a very simple scenario for them if they need to shoehorn this money into another C3. You just make a new C3.
I see.
But I don't know what they're going to do, right? No, that much information I have not gotten. And again, the board is meeting this week. So we're going to get all kinds of news. And then, to your point, when you said there's 76 directors on the board, so many directors resigned that there is no longer a full board. So the people that did not get elected during the election, they get called and said, hey, you were the next runner-up. Do you want the position? Right.
Interesting.
And that's what happened. So there was maybe two, I've lost count, Michael. There's two, maybe more director candidates that did not take the director positions that they would have gotten as a runner-up. But where it stands now, they do not have a full board, even after all of those candidates bumped up. And just to show you where we're at, there is now currently, I guess if they bumped up, right? So I'm assuming they're already considered a board member. I don't know if they have to get sworn in this week or not, but let's just say they're a board member, right? There's a board member serving on the NRA right now that after the board election in 2025 was not aware that there was an NRA 2.0 and a strong NRA faction. So there's somebody that's now on the NRA board of directors that was completely unaware that even this political alliance was even going on. So
Why does that matter? What's that?
well, why does that matter? If you were running for the NRA board, I think you would have been in tune to why you're running.
Didn't even know what was going on. He
did not know that.
I gotcha.
Yeah, did not know that there was these factions, and then that person even lashed out and said, "Well, I wasn't invited to participate in this." It's like, well, what do you mean invited to participate in this? You need to know what's going on.
Yeah, no kidding.
So
That's
so that's how little some people have paid attention to this. Like, for me and you to know this is one thing. This is our job. This is what we do. We dig and we learn and we know and we talk and we communicate. But there was people that were running for the board that didn't even know that this was going on. That's crazy.
There have been, I mean, there's been some interesting people in the past. I know like Carl Malone, from the Utah Jazz kept getting reelected because people recognized his name. Meanwhile, my understanding is Carl Malone didn't do anything on the board. I mean, he didn't show up. He didn't help in any way. I don't know. Maybe I just called out Carl Malone and I shouldn't have. But I've heard in the past that there are board members who get elected for the wrong reasons and then do absolutely nothing. So I think we as members could probably stand to do a better job of electing the right people. But I wonder if NRA have they considered renting some helicopters and going over and capturing the foundation president and just snatching one? Because I hear that works. I've heard that's. I don't know.
Jesus, Mike.
Just a thought. I mean, I don't know.
Just a thought.
I'm just a guy. I don't know.
And talking about the directors, from what I also understand, is with the new blood, they're also getting away from that honorary, I'm a NRA board member and I'm a famous person,
right,
to a working board. So like if you're going to be on the board, you're going to be expected to show up, you're going to be expected to deliver, and you're going to be expected to participate in the process, because people complain about the size of the board and it's untenable, it's too big, it's this, it's that. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I've got my own feelings and thoughts on it. But one of the ideologies that was just floated to me this week alone was, well, no, if we have a board that's a working board and they're working, then that's good. And there have been complaints about the size of and the number of committees and the fact that the committees are stacked with members. Well, that's what you want. You want NRA members on 100%. These committees working with NRA board members. So all of that is actually working very well if you have the committees filled out with the right people. And to do that, you need to have the right people in the officer positions.
100%.
So,
all right. Anything? Let's wrap it up. That was a great conversation. There's a lot of information. Is there anything else you want to make sure people know, or anything you want to clarify? Anything else, or do we cover everything?
No, just that, this all started with a lot of rumors. I was digging into it. I was trying to find information. I'm not judging the foundation. I'm not judging the NRA.
Right.
I'm looking at this as objectively as possible. I wish the foundation would be more forthcoming in their communications with me. And like I said, to any foundation trustee, john@thepenpatriot.com, or anyone for that matter, any of your listeners, I invite them. I'm always looking for news tips, commentary, love mail, hate mail, whatever, feet pics. Sure. I don't care. Whatever.
There you go.
Send it on.
John, the muckraker Petrolino strikes again. We're going to have, by the way, excellent job as always. I really, truly appreciate your professionalism and thoroughness. We'll have a link to it, but the article is at bearingarms.com. Again, John Petrolino. Check it out. I think it's important. We really do truly need all these organizations to be functional. And I think that you really nailed it here with this article, and I appreciate you bringing this to everybody's attention, John.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate you guys. And check me out on the web, thepenpatriot.com. You can get information on my book and all that stuff there too. But definitely send me an email if you've got something to say.
Awesome. John Petrolino, the Pen Patriot. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Okay, our guest, friend of the show, extremely hardworking political guy who I just absolutely think the world of and am so thankful for. Nobody works harder. Nobody is out there doing more in California than our next guest, Assemblyman Carl DeMaio. Carl, thank you for everything that you do. Truly, truly appreciate all your hard work. I don't think people really, truly see the scope of work that you do when it comes to politics in California, and thank you.
Oh, everything we're doing is because we have tens of thousands of volunteers, so it's really credit to them.
Awesome. Okay, so a couple things I wanted to talk to you about, but first, something just developed recently. The shooter, the guy who went into Santana High School in Santee, is being reevaluated, and there's something that you're doing about that or as a result of that. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, there's this mass shooting in Santee in 2003. 2 people killed, more than a dozen injured, and obviously the individual was convicted and sent to prison. But over the years, Democrats have passed legislation watering down penalties for all sorts of crimes and allowing all sorts of get out of jail free cards for people behind bars, because their approach is shut down all the prisons and release everybody. And at the same time, they say we need to stop mass shootings by taking away gun rights from law-abiding citizens. Well, why don't we make sure that when people abuse their Second Amendment rights and engage in evil acts, why don't we actually punish them and make sure that they don't get out of jail so easily? The loophole that we've discovered has now allowed his legal team to petition a judge for resentencing, which means that he could be released. And the loophole itself means that mass shooters who shoot up a school at age 15 could kill people and be out within 10 years by age 25. So you could literally kill 5, 6, 7 people under this loophole at age 15 in a mass shooting at a school, and then after 10 years be out roaming free once again. Meanwhile, they're trying to take away our Second Amendment rights at every turn from law-abiding citizens. So I'm introducing a bill to close the loophole, because I think if you do the crime, you should do the time, because our focus should be on prevention and punishment, not taking away the ability of law-abiding citizens to defend themselves and their loved ones.
It's baffling. I mean, as a gun owner and hearing from gun owners every single day, there's just no argument to be made that California, Sacramento, folks that are serving and making these anti-gun laws, extremely adversarial towards sane, trained, law-abiding gun owners, extremely coddling towards criminals. And I gotta say, like, if somebody does something horrific, like shoots and murders a bunch of people at a school, at anywhere, the one thing both sides agree on is that person should be punished, or at least that's the one thing we used to agree on. And now they don't even agree on that. I mean, well, we'll give them the equivalent of a slap on the wrist, but we're still going to continue to restrict gun owners, but we're going to make sure that this guy can get out of jail. Doesn't make
Well,
any sense.
let me simplify it. They want to protect criminals and coddle criminals and create more crime victims. And this is how they create more crime victims. They release criminals and they take away your ability to defend yourself by eliminating your Second Amendment rights. That is as simple as you can get here in terms of their policy versus our fight. Their policy is to protect criminals and go light on criminals and release them. And at the same time, take away your ability to defend yourself from becoming a crime victim by taking away your Second Amendment rights. There's another bill that I've introduced that has also challenged Democrats on their narrative on Second Amendment issues. Whenever there's a shooting, they want to focus on taking away the instrument, the gun, by taking it away from everybody.
Right.
I want to figure out what's in the head. And so I have a bill that says in every mass shooting that there needs to be a toxicology report done on the shooter. I want to know what drugs were in their system, what chemicals they were being impacted by, because I think it has a lot more to do with what's up here than what's in your hand. And the Democrats don't want to consider the bill. They want to kill the bill. And I think it's a legitimate bill. I think that, if we can get to a common thread that there's some sort of chemical or substance influence, common thread in each of these mass shooters, it could very well get us to a point where we can actually focus on some early warning signs and red flags and things that actually do contribute to people going insane and in committing all these heinous acts. Because I don't think it's the object in your hand. The object in your hand has much more potential to save lives and defend people from becoming crime victims than to do harm.
I think that punishing, criminals, the way you want to do with your first bill, and finding out, hey, what medication are these people on, or what is the toxicology report? I think those are common sense gun laws. When people say, hey, how come you guys are so anti every gun or every law that comes along? We're not. We want these to pass. We want to understand what's causing people to do this, and we also want to make sure that they're punished when they do that. That's a very common.
But can we not? But let's not call them gun laws. These are anti-crime laws. These are crime-fighting laws.
Understood. But you get what I'm saying. I get criticized all the time.
I totally get it.
Oh,
yeah.
You guys are, you don't want to do anything. Yeah, we do. And we're trying to do it.
Right.
But Democrats are stopping us,
Yeah, we want to get to the root cause. We want to make sure that people have the ability to defend themselves from evildoers, because that's how you're going to save lives, is getting a hero in the right place with their Second Amendment rights fully protected to make sure that they can save people from becoming crime victims.
So what if anything, what can we do to help support, as these bills go through the process, what can we do to help support that?
The Second Amendment supporters need to get off the couch and into the streets. They need to start fighting. And it's not enough to say, oh, we're going to sue. You know what? The reason why we're forced to sue is that politicians keep passing bad bills. I need the Second Amendment community in California to get off the couch and into the streets to fight. And the only way we should fight is not by sending letters to legislators or calling them or showing up at their town halls. No. The only language politicians speak is at the ballot box when they get thrown out of their seat on their ass. And so I need the Second Amendment supporters to become activists and volunteers in the streets. And I'm not asking you to go and knock on every door. No. We have to be much more strategic about it. We're publishing a list of 26 target seats in California held by anti-Second Amendment Democrat liberals that we believe we can take out of office in this election. And some of the seats are people who are Republicans that we're defending, and they're good on the Second Amendment. And if they're not good enough on the Second Amendment, even more reason why the Second Amendment community needs to show up at their campaign office and say, here's the deal. Here are how many Second Amendment supporters are willing to walk for you. But let's talk about your voting record, and let's talk about your commitments going forward, because we're not going to walk for you unless you vote for our rights and defend our rights. You can't just react to bad legislation by funding lawsuits. I'm not against funding lawsuits. I think it's great. We have to sue when our rights are infringed upon. But more importantly, I want us to move the needle by, I want to have several politicians lose their seat because of their Second Amendment votes. I want a couple politicians on the Republican side to know that it was the 2A community that showed up and saved their ass in the election. So you better remember that and tell all your other fellow Republicans, if we want to keep our seat, we got to make sure we defend the Second Amendment. That is the language of politics, and it requires activism and
Right.
active engagement in politics. And I'm giving you an opportunity. I'm inviting you to be part of that effort. We're partnering the San Diego County gun owners on identifying these candidates and deploying in the San Diego area, but we're also doing it statewide because I know people watch this show from all around California.
Yeah, and I got to tell you, it's, you know, there's been one lawsuit in the history of the Ninth Circuit that's actually struck down a Second Amendment law and changed it. And we were a part of it, and we're proud of that. But there's only been one time a lawsuit's actually, you know, changed public policy. Meanwhile, we've gotten a number of people elected or pro Second Amendment. One of the biggest success stories that I hear that really got people motivated. And when I say that, I mean politicians would come up to me and comment on it, and you know, they wanted to be a part of the organization. They wanted to help us, and they wanted, you know, they were reaching out for our help. That's when we got Laura Lothian elected in La Mesa. And that was really, truly, I mean, you know, a few other groups kind of helped, but that was Reform, and that was San Diego County gun owners. That was you, Carl, and San Diego County gun owners who got her elected. There was nobody else was pitching in, and we did it. And we did it against a lot of odds. And Laura's extremely thankful, and a lot of other people took big notice.
And on an all-Democrat city council, she led the fight against an atrociously bad anti-2A local law. It was the gun safe mandate that they were trying to impose, and she defeated that. So when people say, well, what does one seat matter? In that city, one seat settled the argument. It actually blocked bad far-left anti-2A legislation. And we can do that up and down the state of California. Even in the blue state of California, we can do that. But we've got to focus, which is why we give people that list of 26 seats in 2026. And we ask them to focus on just those districts.
And
that might mean that you're not walking your own neighborhood.
Right. Is there somebody you want to highlight? Is there somebody you want to talk about real quick? Or
not necessarily. I mean, you know, it's sort of like, which of your children do you like or love more? We need all 26. So go to the website, reformcalifornia.org, and click under the target seat campaign. And there's a list of 26 seats in 2026 that we're targeting.
And one last question. If somebody says, okay, I'm in, I'm going to dedicate time, I'm going to work with San Diego County gun owners, I'm going to work with Reform, I'm actually going to make an effort in 2026. By the way, San Diego County gun owners, our theme this year, 2026, the year I volunteer. And you're going to hear that a lot this year. If they volunteer, though, Carl, what are 2 or 3 of the things they're going to actually be doing? Like if they show up and say, hey, I'm here, put me to work, like what are some of the things that are actually effective for volunteers to do?
First, between now and the election, we're going to be doing handwritten letters with the voter guide. And so you take a mail kit home and you just do handwritten letters, number 10 envelopes, because that breaks through the clutter in the mailbox to make sure that people get a voter guide and know who to vote for. Mm-hmm. Excuse me. Second, when it comes time to ballots arriving in October in the runoff, we need people to canvass, but not walk door to door. I need you to drive. It's called drive and drag, because we're going to focus on going to homes that are dispersed. And then finally, events, barbecue, beer, and ballot events.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that's all perfect. That's it, and I don't think people really truly understand just how effective that stuff is. Showing up, doing those things, those personal items, that's what it is. I think we all envision that, like, you know, well, they're going to give us a sword and a flag, and we're going to run up that hill, and it's going to be, you know, very Braveheart or, you know, whatever. I'm going to Mel Gibson, you know. We all want to do that, but really it's these personal touches, these actual steps that volunteers take that we help organize. We want to make activism easy. That's what wins. And then on
personal contact.
That first Tuesday in November, when you watch, hey, the candidate I helped got the most votes and won, and I don't care if they win by 1 vote or a million votes. I care that they win. You know, Dustin Trotter out in Santee won by 4 votes one year. 4 votes. So anyway, that's the stuff that's effective. That's what we need more of. So look for our emails. Sign up at Reform. Obviously, sign up at San Diego County Gun Owners. look for those emails, look for those opportunities, and help us out in 2026. We could really, truly make an enormous difference.
Absolutely. And when people say, well, it's hopeless in California. Well, we've got a plan, and it actually is proven to work. And all we need is you. You need to activate, because no one is coming to save you. No billionaire is galloping in to write a big check to save California. You're going to save yourself, and we're all going to save each other by rising up and volunteering all at the same time. And I'm not asking you to do stupid stuff. I'm not asking you to wave signs over freeways. That doesn't work. I don't ask you to do things that don't work, don't move the needle. Yeah. I am asking you to go to drive to someone's home, and I'm going to give you a specific list of people to go after who are not returning ballots, who are low propensity, lazy voters. I want you to knock on their door and explain to them why their vote matters. I'm not even asking you to go to a Democrat door. You're going to go to a door of someone who already believes in the Second Amendment, someone who already agrees with you. And all you need to do is give them hope. I just want you to give them hope.
There you go. Awesome. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate everything you do. Any last words, or sign up at Reform, obviously, but any reformcalifornia.org is the website. Reformcalifornia.org. Continue to support San Diego County gun owners. And we value our partnership with your group, Michael, and we will get out a list of endorsed candidates and opportunities to volunteer if you're on the list at reformcalifornia.org. Go to the bottom of the website and sign up there. Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Looking forward to fighting the battle in 2026 with you guys. Okay, so that's Carl. I got to tell you, I talked to Carl, I don't know, a lot. I've talked to him a little bit less since he got elected into the assembly, but a lot of times he and I'll talk once a week. And people do not realize how hard that guy works. I mean, trying to keep up with him is impossible. But the other thing I don't think people realize is there's very little daylight, if any, between the folks he supports and San Diego County Gunners. A lot of the conversations he and I have are about candidates, and he's like, hey, here's what we're thinking as far as endorsements, but we want to make sure you guys are on board. Very, very infrequently do we have a disagreement. Mm-hmm. He's done an amazing job. He's kind of turned into kind of the de facto Republican Party in San Diego. I mean, the Republican Party is starting to turn some things around and do some things effectively, which also is in large part to the efforts of Carl. But there was definitely a vacuum, a Republican vacuum, and he filled it really effectively. I got to tell you, if there was a Carl DeMaio in every county, it would be a very different California. But anyway, what'd you think? Of the interview?
I thought it was great. He's awesome. I mean, he's done so much Second Amendment, advocacy work and stuff. So definitely appreciate everything he's done. I thought his bill related to the Santana shooter is super interesting, because I didn't realize the full scope of exactly what that loophole is. Basically, this guy who has only served 24 years or something. He was
99. So. Wasn't it 99
or 2001? I thought, but either way, anyway. Close. Yeah, so close to 20 something years. Yeah. But he was sentenced to 50 to life, and so they could be letting him out 30 years early, basically just because he was an underage shooter. If he had been 18, he would have had to be tried in adult court, which is what happened. He was a juvenile that got tried in adult court, got sentenced like an adult. Well, why would we not sentence 15-year-olds like adults when they commit mass shootings? Isn't that incentivizing more mass shooters if they're like, oh, I could be out by the time I'm 35? It's crazy.
He didn't rob a store.
No.
He didn't.
He did a big boy crime. He should get big boy time.
But I just don't understand the benefit to society in letting him out of jail. I don't get that.
Well, and just 2 years ago, in 2024, he was up for his first ever parole, and they denied him because they said he might still be a threat to community. They literally denied him as a public safety risk just in 2024.
Hey, a lot can happen in a year.
To update us to the date, the shooting was on March 5th of 2001.
2001. Okay. I was a little way off.
Yeah. But I mean, he killed 2 people. He wounded 13 others. Yeah. And obviously that had a lasting impact on that community. There's still folks in Santee who, were involved, were there, who worked at the school that day, who get to live with this trauma forever. They're they're not done living with the trauma just because this guy's in prison. But if he gets out, or even just this being in the news cycle again, is bringing this all back up for those victims. So not only are we thinking about letting somebody dangerous back into society, but we're putting all the victims through additional trauma just by, blasting his face and his name all over the local media again.
I've actually talked to about a handful of people that were students, and they're pro Second Amendment. And the conversation was, they were thinking about like coming on the show or, making a statement, basically saying, hey, I was a victim, but I'm still pro Second Amendment. And they basically are still so affected that they can't tell their story.
Right.
And they've all kind of said, I can't do this. I just need to, it's horrific. I don't think that even needs to be stated. I certainly can't be overstated how horrific it is. But I don't understand, how can we take the other side seriously? How can we see them as a moral equivalent when they try to ban and take our guns and put us in jail, and they try to let people like him out of jail early? Yeah. I don't understand. Why am I expected to sit down at the table and talk to people like that? Like it doesn't, there's no, so often we have there's a stereotype that the pro Second Amendment folks are the ones that are unreasonable. All we do is compromise.
Yeah.
Right.
And all they do is continue to try to take our guns away and try to let people who have committed crimes with guns out of jail. It's just, I don't get it. I do not get it. I don't think I should have to get it, frankly.
Yeah. No, it's crazy.
Anyway, I really like how he highlighted the work that an activist can do.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I'll tell you, my very first time meeting Carl, well, actually my second time meeting Carl, I actually did do door knocking, and I took my kids. My oldest was in 6th grade, and I took my kids with me, and we knocked on doors. And I will tell you, my kids, my oldest remembers, the others are too young at the time, but they went, and it was powerful. It was being a kid, like he remembers it, and that was kind of a neat thing. And not only does it help the cause, not only does it help to encourage your fellow citizens to get involved, and kind of make a difference. It shows the people that in the doors that you knock on that you care, and hey, maybe this is important enough. It was a good example, and it was something neat that the kids and I did together, and they remember it. It was powerful.
Right.
So,
Nice.
Get out there and do it.
There you go. Thank you, Carl. Appreciate you taking the time. Okay, good.
Those of you who know me know that I love training. You've heard me talk about different classes I've taken and different opportunities I've had to train with some of the best. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about Massad Ayub. Those of you who have never had the opportunity to train with Massad, he is a legend in this industry. He was a former police officer. He has a ton of experience with deadly force, and he has a phenomenal instructor program called Deadly Force Instructor. I went all the way to Detroit back in 2022 to take this class from him, and you guys are super lucky. He is going to be coming to San Diego, so you don't have to travel far to get into this class. One of the things that I really appreciated about this class is the opportunity to do a mock trial. We got to actually play different roles in this trial, figure out who gets acquitted or not acquitted, and just deal with all of those repercussions as if they were real. So we had lawyers in class who were, actually debating their client's case. We had different witnesses go on the stand. I got to play the daughter of one of the characters on the stand, so that was a lot of fun. But it was just a great opportunity for us to experience how a good attorney can really make or break somebody's case. And we've seen this time and time again in the Deadly Force Instructor class. Sometimes you have an attorney who gets you off, and sometimes you have an attorney who doesn't. So it's a good opportunity for you to recognize how important the law process is and making sure that you have a good attorney. It's also a great way to make sure that you're teaching your students the best, most well-practiced pieces of the law. So for example, In class, Masad Ayub will go over a ton of different cases and do some case studies on how these cases turned out so that you can go back to your students with some real life knowledge of how these things played out in court. One of the biggest takeaways for me in this class was the amount of knowledge Masad Ayub had. And I mean, this guy knows so much about so many things. I took probably 8 pages of notes in this class, and I was able to come back to San Diego and I really revamped my entire CCW curriculum based on what I had learned. So not only is it real life data from actual shootings, actual defense situations, but it's also just a wide breadth of knowledge from an instructor who has literally decades of experience in this topic. I really enjoyed the class, and I think you would too. Go ahead and join us in San Diego if you are an instructor wanting to make sure that your students are getting the best information about deadly force and use of force. And if you're a defense attorney and you want to get a little bit of experience in a classroom with a bunch of folks who have the potential to use a firearm for protecting their own life in the future. So it's a great opportunity for you to learn about deadly force, being a better instructor, and being a better attorney. Brian Hill is the owner and head coach of the Complete Combatant down in Georgia. He is also a Heckler & Koch brand ambassador and endorsed instructor. He's sponsored by lots of folks. He's a military trainer. He is the past owner of a fitness and MMA gym. And he has done so much for the Second Amendment community. He was appointed to the NRA Education and Training Committee in 2025. He works with Filster holsters. He's an instructor. His instructor credential list is massive. But without further ado, thank you, Brian, for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I heard you're coming out to San Diego here shortly. We've got you on the schedule for a couple of classes. You want to talk a little bit about what those classes are and who they are best fit for?
Yeah, 2 unique classes that I do. One is the Living Safety Rules, which is how do you actually apply the context of the safety rules. We often repeat the safety rules, but we don't know the actions that go with them. And we found with human beings in general that if you tell them what not to do, they're more likely to do that, and they tend to be maliciously creative in that regard. So it's a practice of actual application of the actions that go with it. And then the secondary class is Integrated Arms, which is a pistol and a rifle class, and it allows you to understand the strengths and weaknesses of both the pistol and the rifle, best use in and around cover with backgrounds, how to open doors, how to move through areas, and how to get the most out of each shooting. So that should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. So that first class that you were talking about, the safety rules class, is that in person or online? How do people take that class?
Yeah, this is going to be a shooting class. So it's
Awesome.
in person on the range, and they get a chance to do it. Some of it'll be dry and some of it'll be live. But we'll be working on it. You know, if you take one of the most general rules is the direction of the muzzle, we'll be working on the places where people tend to fail or don't do the correct actions. Like when on a reholster, they don't tend to anchor to the body or move the foot in and put it back in position. And then we'll make it more complex as the day goes on with different shooting scenarios and ideas to work behind.
That's awesome. That sounds like it'll be a great opportunity for folks of all levels, whether you're newer to shooting and want to kind of get those safety rules really ingrained as you build your foundation, or maybe even for folks who are instructors and want to see a different way to teach those safety rules. So I think that'll be a great class for a wide variety of students. And then the day 2, that integrated arms, who would you say as far as skill level wise is going to be best suited for that course?
So as far as the pistol, you need to be able to draw from the holster safely and reholster safely. As far as the rifle, you need to have a good sling and understand how to use the sling. And outside of that, the rest of it we can fill in. That's kind of what the class is for. And that class came to me watching Christian Craighead charge in an Arobi hotel and they estimated roughly 700 lives because he actually had gear with him at the time. And we've seen multiple instances of this. So I know a lot of people have both and they don't get to train with them at the same time.
Yeah.
So often the pistol is a secondary idea in a rifle class, but this is going to be equal ground for both of them so that you can see where you're good enough with one and where you're better with another and what the limitations are. I think it'll be real interesting for people. It's a unique way to approach this. So.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a super awesome way to spend a weekend. So looking forward to that for sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Brent. So when you say the safety rules, do you mean like the 4 standard safety rules, or are you saying the more, the thorough, more intricate set of safety rules for this specific situation?
So this is based off Cooper's rules, but the real idea is the way that the neuroscience has brought to light how the brain interprets these particular actions and how it rewards correct action over time. And this course came about as a study through why don't safety rules work well. You only have to go to an indoor range to see multiple violations of people, even though the rules are well addressed on the wall, and maybe they sign a waiver. So this will be the 4, which will know the condition of our gun, point the muzzle in a direction of least consequence, touch the trigger and see the sights according to the task at hand when you make a decision to shoot, know your background and its surroundings. But we're really going to delve into what is the problems for human beings with these actions, why do failures occur, and what's the best practice, the proper actionable practice that shows you what I'm expecting you to do or what you should do in a situation instead of telling people what not to do.
That's interesting. The reason I ask is, I mean, the basic safety rules are so important in every situation. I think that people think like, well, that's for beginners or whatever. No, even if you're doing something, it's for everybody. Even if you're doing something complex, like what you're teaching, with multiple firearms and, whatever, those basic safety rules are so, so important.
Context tends to be gray too and flexible. It changes from second to second. And that's really important for folks to understand that you don't just know the rule and then you never make a mistake. What we want people to do is learn to be not safe, but strong in their practice of safety.
I think that's a great point. We see folks all the time who maybe are aware of the regular 4 safety rules at an indoor range with, shooting dividers on either side, and then they get to an outdoor range or a different environment, and maybe, hot brass is hitting them from their neighbor or this and that, and all those rules go out of their head instantly as they flail around trying to get the hot brass off of them or whatnot. So I think it's a great reminder that there's so many different, levels of safety that we should be practicing, and that context matters so much for those. So I think it'll be an awesome weekend. We're looking forward to having you come out.
Yeah, that's cool. How do people sign up?
You can go to thecompletecombatant.com. There was my radio voice, thecompletecombatant.com. Everything's there. You'll find all our links, and we're on Instagram and Facebook and X and everywhere else. So you can find us just about anywhere under that title.
Are you going to SHOT Show?
I am. I'm working the HK booth. I'll be out on the range.
I'll swing by and say hello to you. This is gonna be my first SHOT Show, so I'm like,
wow.
I know, I'm like a little. I feel like I'm gonna have like one of those little hats with the propeller and a little backpack and my little sack lunch. I feel like a little kindergartner going to my first day of school.
Dora the Explorer.
Maybe a little less Dora the Explorer, but
Caillou.
Yeah. So.
All right. Well.
A little more of that. I mean, it's Vegas. Hey, what happens in Vegas?
There'll be pictures.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to having you here in Alpine, California, coming up February 27th, 28th, and 29th. Go to thecompletecombatant.com to learn more.
Thank you, guys.
So when you're using it on your firearms, because it takes about 3 cleanings, so I like to say it's a clean shoot, clean shoot, clean shoot process, much like seasoning a cast iron skillet. So you're going to field strip your firearm, break it down, and then you're going to put our product on piece by piece by piece, covering the entire firearm. Then you're going to take the barrel, you're going to clean the barrel inside of that, and then you come back and you wipe it all off, and you're done. It's that easy. Remember, seal one and done.
All right, now it's time for everyone's favorite segment. It's where we bring Mike's nephew Sam on with us to answer a question from one of you, our listeners. Now, if you have a question, please go online, go to gunownersradio.com, submit your question so that Mike can give you a prize. All right, so Sam, are you ready for today's question?
I hope so.
All right, so our question today comes from Jill, and Jill lives in Chula Vista. Her question is, Which early 20th century pistol cartridge was originally designed to comply with European military restrictions on civilian ownership, leading to its reduced power compared to its parent cartridge?
Jill from Chula Vista, thanks for writing in. What 20th century, did she specify it was a pistol cartridge?
Correct. Pistol cartridge,
Okay.
yes.
What 20th century pistol cartridge was designed specifically in response to European civilian firearm ownership standards? Did she say when? Did she say early 20th century or just 20th century?
Early 20th century,
Ooh, early 20th century.
which
So-
led to its reduced power.
Read
compared
it
to
one
its
more
parent.
time. Give
Right.
him one more reading.
So, which early 20th century pistol cartridge was originally designed to comply with European military restrictions on civilian ownership? It led to its reduced power compared to its parent cartridge.
Well, I know one answer that I know is wrong and one answer that I think is wrong. So
This, by the way, Jill from Chula Vista, this is an excellent question.
yeah, this is a great question.
This is a
Perfect
very
format.
well-formed question. You did a good job. This is exactly what we're looking for. Sometimes we get it's hard. This is a hard thing to do, is to ask these questions. Sometimes we get these questions where it's like, nah, it doesn't quite, I don't know. We're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. This is an excellent question.
Well, I know there's 9x21 IMI, which is not early 20th century. It's from the second half of the 20th century. And it is, to my knowledge, not reduced in power. It's just basically 9 parabellum, but with a little bit longer case. So that countries like Italy, for example, though I think that might have changed in recent years, but for a long time they had a law in place that you couldn't have a firearm chambered in a military cartridge. So that way you get basically the performance of 9 parabellum. You get a wide variety of options because anything in 9x19 can be rebarreled to fire that. But I know that's not the answer because, again, not reduced power, not early 20th century. For early 20th century, the only cartridge that comes to mind is 9mm Glisenti, which was an Italian cartridge that was dimensionally identical to 9x19 parabellum, but was reduced in power, though I thought the reason it was reduced in power was so that it would run safely in simple blowback pistols with no locked breech or no delaying mechanism. But that feels wrong, but I'm going to go with 9mm Glisenti. That's the only thing I can think of. Good question.
I think that the part of the question that would be helpful is to focus on the year it was done to comply with. First of all, it's not the correct answer. To comply with European military restrictions on civilian ownership.
Comply with European military restrictions on civilian ownership.
European military restrictions. I don't understand that part of the question, because restrictions on civilian ownership would be from civilian law, not any type of military code. I really don't know. She got me good.
All right. The answer that was provided states the 380 ACP 9x17, which was developed from the 9x19 parabellum to meet civilian ownership laws in Europe.
No, it wasn't.
I am checking the accuracy of that answer right now.
By the way, the show's been going on for like 8 years. Sam's been on for like 6 or 7 years.
Okay,
I refuse to quality assure any of it. After complimenting on what a great question it was.
Okay, we need to zoom in on Sam's face when he said that because it was so funny. He was just like the way he said,
I need
no,
to
it
confirm.
wasn't.
I gotta look it up.
Right,
I gotta look it up. I'm pretty sure it wasn't, because 380 ACP was designed by John Browning.
Correct.
And so the sort of the lineage is separate from, again, to my knowledge. I'm in the process of looking this up as I talk. To my knowledge, the lineage is completely separate.
Well, the other thing is, now that
run in his own guns.
Now that you're saying this, Sam, why would John Browning, okay, so 380 ACP automatic Colt pistol, why would he develop a European round for civilian? It's not completely out of the realm of possibility, but that does seem odd.
depends on whether he was working for FN at the time, but because it is because it has ACP in the name, that would have been before that. He was working for Colt.
Let's see what we can find.
I found some information. I'd like to see Sam's research.
Okay.
Well, I know 9mm Parabellum was designed. I don't know if it was designed specifically by Georg Luger, or but I know Georg Luger was heavily involved in it because the desire from commercial customers, i.e., militaries, for the Luger pistol was to have something with a little bit heavier bullet weight than 9x21. So the rationale would have to be separate. You know what? There's an easy way to check this. I can look at the SAMI specs or the CIP specs, but I don't speak French.
No.
Because if the case head diameter is different, then we know 9mm was not the parent case.
What did you find, Alicia? Read what you found.
I didn't find anything deep. It just, what I found states that lower recoil and simpler mechanics made it popular where military calibers were restricted. They're stating that the 9 was a military caliber, therefore restricted.
Well, it is restricted, or was anyway, restricted in some countries. I think it still is restricted in some countries because of its use as a military cartridge. They have that law that, you can't have anything chambered for military ammunition. So 380, I know 380 was used in Europe and still is used in Europe. And I know it's somewhat popular on the civilian market there, but, and that is a valid reason why, but I'm not aware of, again, still trying to look this up. I'm not aware of any actual relationship between the two cartridges.
And here's, let's see, key reasons the 380 was developed by John.
I know this really makes for riveting viewing, watching.
Well, let's spin it out.
We'll probably cut a little of this out.
No, that's good. It'll stay on the cutting room floor. Compact concealed carry.
On occasion, I'll see comments in the thread saying where people are like, Sam repeats the question because he's Googling it. He's looking it up. It's pretty, no, he doesn't.
I know.
No,
Look at
he
this.
doesn't.
Look at how much effort it takes.
No, he doesn't.
And also, like, if anyone is concerned that he's looking it up, watch when he's actually typing on his computer how much effort it's taking him to, like, look at how close he is to the screen right now. I think he needs glasses. I don't need
glasses. I'm not old yet. All right.
All right, Mike, put on your glasses.
9 Parabellum case head diameter is 10.01 millimeters minus 0.25. I'm giving this all in metric. 10.01 minus 0.25 versus.
Okay.
I don't understand how we're doing math now to
know.
figure out the answer.
Okay, so
there's a point here. Let me cook.
Let me read this. Can I read this real quick, Sam? This is from luckygunner.com, which is a very reliable source.
Is it?
Yeah, the 380 ACP wasn't developed specifically to comply with European laws, but rather by American John Moses Browning for compact American pistols. Yet it became immensely popular in Europe for military police use as 9mm Kurz/short. Due to its compact size and manageable recoil, fitting European needs for sidearms in smaller, easily concealable guns. Its success overseas led to widespread adoption in European-made guns like the Walther PPK, even as the U.S. focused on 45 ACP and 38 Special. So he's saying that it wasn't developed specifically for that reason, but because of that reason, it took off. So here's what we're going to do.
Well, I have more
all right, lay it on.
Information about that man.
Go for it.
First of all, the chronology is such that I'm pretty sure the 9mm Luger or 9mm Parabellum predates the 380 ACP. I know the 380 ACP was first chambered in the Colt 1903 pocket hammerless, and I'm pretty sure they were making Lugers in 9mm a couple of years before that. But the real smoking gun, if you'll pardon the pun here,
I get it,
is that the case head diameters are different. Now, when you base a cartridge on another cartridge, you're usually changing the length and sometimes changing the taper, necking it up, necking it down, things like that. But the case head does not change. 9mm Parabellum per the SAMI spec, has a maximum case head diameter of 10.01 millimeters minus 0.25. So that's your tolerance. 380 ACP is 9.5 minus 0.25. It's about a half a millimeter difference. So we know, based on the different dimensions of the part that doesn't change dimensions when you redesign a cartridge, that the one was not based on the other. Also, just based on sort of historical common sense, the Luger and Browning were not talking to each other when they weren't collaborating.
Jill from Chula Vista, you did such a good job crafting the question, and then you dropped it in the end zone. Okay. We're going to say that you did not stump my nephew.
Yeah. I mean, Sam stumped the answer.
Yeah. All right. Awesome
The
job.
caller has to send Sam something.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, Jill from Chula
that would be
Vista,
a
you
fun
have
thing.
to send Sam a hat or a shirt or some kind of special prize.
Now, this goes for every answer I give, everything I say. If I present this is to all you viewers out there, if I present some information that you think is inaccurate and you have an authoritative primary or secondary or like good secondary source, I'm not talking like Ammo Land or something. Not that they're bad, it's whatever. If you have a primary source or an authoritative secondary source in the form of like a well-researched book or something that disproves what I'm saying, I would love to see it because that way I'll learn more.
There you go.
Like
That's a good attitude.
I'm not afraid of being flamed. I get stuff wrong sometimes, but I think dollars to donuts, 380 or as they call it in Europe, 9x17 or 9mm Kurtz for short, is not based on 9mm parabellum. They just have the same nominal diameter, and the Kurtz nomenclature is used to differentiate it from the slightly longer cartridge.
Gotcha. That's good information. How funny would it be if we should I should have said this when he wasn't on the air to surprise him. How funny would it be though?
You could still wait. You haven't
wait.
gotten it out yet.
How would it be if he receives in the mail like a hat that says Jill from Chula Vista?
That would be funny.
Yeah, right. Anyway. All right, man. Good job. Anything exciting coming up? Anything? We were going to talk about something else, weren't we, Sam? What were we going to talk about?
Yeah, there is something exciting coming up, and not in a good way. It's
Not in a good
exciting
way.
in
Lay it
the
on
you
us.
live in interesting times sense. Yeah, so I live in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and we had a new government come into office in, this month because the administrations change in January. We got a new governor, Abigail Spanberger, and we got a new, mostly new legislature. The composition changed. The lower house, the Virginia House of Delegates, went from, I think it was 51-49 Republican to Democrat to 64-36 Democrat to Republican.
Fairly detrimental election when it comes to gun owners in Virginia. It did not go the way of gun owners.
The Republican Party got blown out, and due to a quirk in Virginia's electoral law, our governors can serve multiple terms, but they may not be elected to they may not be elected to sequential terms. So Glenn Youngkin, who was our outgoing governor, even though he was pretty popular, was not allowed to run again. He could run again in 4 years, but not in this election. So yeah, the Republicans got absolutely blown out. And so the Democrats in the state legislature have done the thing that they always do every legislative session, which is introduce a whole slate of new gun control bills. In this time around, there are 10 of them. There's an assault weapons ban, or, quote unquote, assault weapons ban, just like they always propose. And I mentioned, I think a few weeks ago, that one thing I was excited for in 2026 is that getting tied up in the courts, because I know it will. I'm not excited for the law, but hopefully it'll get struck down by a court and not get appealed. But who knows? Who knows?
So how many laws total? You said there was a whole slate. How many gun laws could you find that they introduced in Virginia?
Yeah, well, let me pull up LIS here. They proposed 10 of them. A couple of them are duplicates.
10.
You'll have one that's proposed in the House of Delegates and another one that's proposed in the state Senate, the upper house. So there are really only 8, basically.
8, still a lot, still a ton.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation. The big one is the so-called assault weapon ban, which the way that'll work is based off of a feature list. It'll be the definition is a little bit more in-depth than this, but for the purposes of rifles, it'll be a semi-automatic center fire rifle that can accept a detachable magazine and has a feature. It's not like under the 94 federal ban where you can have one feature, no, you get 0 features. And that includes a threaded barrel, or really basically any muzzle device, a flash suppressor, or a muzzle brake, or a compensator. Those are all considered features. Oddly, for pistols, a barrel extender is a feature. Now, I would be really curious as to know what a barrel extender is.
I honestly, I don't know what that, I've never heard that term, a barrel extender?
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
What is a barrel extender?
Well, there's a term barrel extension, which is the part of like an AR type rifle's barrel into which the bolt locks, but that's clearly not what they mean because they're talking about muzzle devices and the term is different. So if someone in the Virginia House of Delegates could please give me a ring and tell me what a barrel extender is, I'd love to know.
Maybe that's
also,
the part that goes up.
Wasn't
that remember that interview where they asked what a barrel shroud was? And she said, that's the part that goes up. No, it's not. You don't even know what you're talking about. Okay, so that all sounds very familiar. It sounds like Virginia gets a nice little piece of California. Unfortunately, it's in the form of an assault weapons ban. That sounds very, very similar. In fact, if I'm hearing you right, it sounds pretty identical to our semi-automatic rifle ban out here in California. That if it's semi-automatic centerfire, accepts a detachable magazine, and has a feature, then they're banning it, right?
And there's a worse part to it too. This isn't just the, all feature lists are I know it when I see it kind of things,
right?
And they're ridiculous to begin with, as we all know. But something I don't want to say buried in there because it's written in black and white is that a shotgun is considered an assault weapon, assault style firearm. Even if it doesn't have a detachable magazine, if it can hold more than, let me actually pull it up here. I believe it was more than 7 shells of the shortest ammunition for which it is chambered.
Oh,
now,
interesting.
Because of the existence of mini shells,
that
becomes a really big problem. Because if you have a 2 3/4 inch chambered 12 gauge shotgun that has a 5-round magazine tube that can hold 7 mini shells. So that becomes your Remington 870, Grandpappy's old 1187, or in my case, Winchester Model 1200. Those all become assault weapons. So actually, mine doesn't because it was manufactured before July 1st of 2026. The way the grandfather clause works is not that they're exempted, it's that they're not considered assault weapons. So the same firearm made on June 30th of 2026 versus July 1st of 2026 is a different thing legally.
Well, and let me tell you what grandfather clauses do, how they do the most damage. They damage in 2 ways. Number one, they allow existing gun owners to remain lazy. Say, well, it's not affecting me, it's not my firearm, blah, 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 blah. So they don't get involved. The other thing it does is it allows anti-gunners to sound reasonable. And they go, hey, they're not taking your guns. You can keep your guns. They're being extremist when they say that they're gun grabbing. That's simply not what's true. And that is an obvious and horrible misuse of information and totally misleading, representation of exactly what's happening. But that's why they grandfathered in. If they didn't grandfather it in, the people that could stop this would actually get involved and help stop this.
If they didn't grandfather it, then the constituents of many of these legislators would be, I don't want to say rioting in the streets, because to my knowledge, in this country, there's never been an out and out violent riot in favor of the right to keep and bear arms, because we are law abiding citizens. But it would certainly go over like a lead balloon. And in fact, in past legislative sessions, when it's like I'm imagining a manila folder in some legislator's office that has the exact same bills in there that they pull out every January. And in past sessions, some legislators have jumped ship and said, no, this is too extreme. Either I don't believe in this, or because I think I'm a moderate, or because I'm worried about my seat. I found the clause about shotguns, by the way. It's a shotgun with a magazine that will hold more than 7 rounds of the shortest ammunition for which it is chambered. So if you have a 6-round tube in a 2 3/4 inch shotgun, that can hold more than 7 mini shells.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an assault style firearm now.
That is crazy.
Thank you for the update. That's awesome. Congratulations.
I wouldn't say.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic that Virginians are now in the fight with us.
California misery loving the company. Is that what's happening there?
Welcome to the trenches. So I'll tell you one thing. You're right. There's never been a pro-Second Amendment riot, and I think that's a good thing. I think we should use the resources that the Constitution designed for us to use. The ballot box and, the jury box, and et cetera, et cetera. The closest that has ever come to a violent riot, though, happened right there in Virginia. In Williamsburg, which used to be the capital of Virginia, the British came. Obviously, this is before we were a country. But the British came and said, hey, we're taking all the powder. We're taking all your powder. And we're putting it under British control, because the British were sick and tired of all the freedom that the colonists were talking about. And Patrick Henry, the gimme liberty or gimme death guy, led a group of people to the governor's mansion with like torches and pitchforks, and basically said, hey, you're going down. And he was able to calm them down and say, hey, look, I'll deal with this in the morning. I promise. I'm sure it's all just a big misunderstanding or whatever. He said to calm this group down. And Patrick Henry said, okay, great. We'll figure this all out. And then the governor left. He fled. He packed his bags and wasn't there in the morning, and abandoned Virginia. So that's as close as I can get to giving you all the details of that situation. But that's as close as Americans have come to a violent protest when it comes to, the right to keep and bear arms.
Well, come to think of it, there's another example. The battles of Lexington and Concord, the opening shots of the American Revolution, started as an attempt by the British, basically gendarmerie, troops deployed there to act as law enforcement, attempted to confiscate the magazine, the public facility where the civilians' arms were being stored. They went in there, they tried to take the powder and I believe the long guns, and the people living in Lexington said, no. And as the saying goes, war were declared.
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, there's a pretty good article on NRA's website about that, like right now.
I don't think it'll come to that. And I certainly hope it doesn't come to that. I don't think anyone sound of mind actually wants political violence. But I think it serves to show how far we've strayed from the founding fathers' vision for this country, many of whom were Virginians, people from the same place I am. I mean, for Pete's sake, George Washington grew up in the same county where I live. And now we're sitting here going, well, do people really need to be allowed to own firearms for self-defense? No one needs that. You don't need this. You don't need that. One of the other bills that I didn't even mention, one of the other proposed bills, effectively outlaws the manufacture of firearms for personal use. And it does that by saying, well, every firearm has to have a serial number, which must be applied by someone who has a license to do that. So if you don't have a license to manufacture firearms, then you can't make your own project gun. Now, the justification for that, I'm sure, is the number of unserialized firearms confiscated by law enforcement, But what people don't like to talk about, and this is a big deal in California too, and it's a big deal federally. There was a big to-do made about it by the president a couple of years ago, the previous president. They don't differentiate between so-called ghost guns that are regular firearms that have serial numbers, that have the serial numbers defaced or destroyed, and so-called ghost guns that are made from kits. It's just like, oh, well, it's these evil ghost guns. Clearly, criminal enterprises are buying pallets and pallets of polymer 80 frames and milling them out and building their own guns, when that's really not, by and large, what's happening.
Exactly.
And even if it were, as a point of principle, why is it fair that criminals should be like, there's no actual mechanism that they go, oh, well, crap, it's illegal now. I guess we're not making our own guns to go out and commit crimes. All that passing a law against that does is crack down on the numerous law-abiding hobbyists who happen to enjoy making their own firearms, milling out their own 80% lowers or 80% frames, or getting into 3D printing firearms without doing anything to make enforcement more stringent against the people who are actually going and tucking guns with serial numbers scratched out into their waistbands and robbing Wawa.
We don't know what a Wawa is in California, but absolutely right.
That's why I said that.
It's a 7-Eleven. So you're absolutely right. I got to tell you, I think it would be a good skit if it was like that would start out with like, hey, we've outlawed people's ability to manufacture their own guns at home. And then you saw like a bunch of gang members who said, gosh, I guess we'll just go learn to code. And like, they go to college to be programmers instead of career criminals like they are. Sam, awesome job. Appreciate it. Good luck in your fight in Virginia. Good luck to the Virginians. Let us know if you need some help. We've been there before. We're there now. Hopefully some lawsuit that has to do with banning semi-automatic rifles will hit. San Diego County gun owners, we have ours. It's the Miller case, and we'd love to see something successful happen. But the reality is, if you get involved and get the right people elected, then these horrible laws don't have to be fought in court. And that really, truly is that's the ounce of prevention. So awesome job, Sam. Thank you very much, man.
Hey, thanks for having me on, as always. And good luck to my fellow Virginians out there, all zero who are watching this.
All right, so we've got some interesting news out of California from the NRA ILA. They published an article sharing that the U.S. Department of Justice and 25 states filed amicus briefs, amicus briefs, supporting NRA challenge to California ammunition regulations. So those of you who live here probably are aware, although maybe we have some listeners who didn't know, that you can't just go to a range and buy ammo here in California unless you do a background check and have a firearm registered to you. So very silly laws here that we have to deal with. But that basically means that every time we buy ammunition to take home, we have to go to an FFL, have a firearm registered to our current address that is shown on our driver's license, pass the check, which it used to be, I think in 2019 when this passed, it was $1. Now it's $5 per transaction, and probably going to keep going up. So now most of us who buy ammo in California do so in bulk because it just doesn't make sense to pay $5 every time you have to buy one box of ammo or whatever. So anyway, the Department of Justice and 25 other states said, hey, that's really silly. California should not be able to do that. That is the Road v. Bonta case, which is backed by the NRA and CRPA and a bunch of other folks, but basically challenging the law that says you need a background check and you can't import ammunition from out of state. And so that lawsuit is working its way through, and seems like we've got a lot of supporters with our more conservative and pro 2A states, half of the states supporting this. So I thought that was a little interesting update for you guys that just happened. we've talked about it on the show before. We talked about the petition. California wanted to petition for an en banc hearing in August last year, and then the Ninth Circuit granted the petition in December, and we will be hearing those arguments in March. So it'll be interesting to see how things go. The next couple of months here will be big deals for this case.
And this case was kind of one of the earliest when it comes to Second Amendment cases that really had a foothold. I mean, there have been a number, but right before Bruin and then right after Bruin, there were a bunch of lawsuits that happened, and this one's kind of turned into the linchpin of all the cases. In fact, the Ninth Circuit tried to punt, and they basically said, well, let's see what Bruin says before we do anything.
Right.
Yep.
And then Bruin went completely and totally against them, and now they're doing all these stall tactics. But and the reason I bring that up is it's important to understand that this isn't just about ammunition. This is a much broader thing. This needs to win so other cases can win. This needs to win so that ammunition and basically all the things that are required of a gun are treated with the same protections as a firearm. I realize that it is a very focused lawsuit, but it has much broader ramifications.
Well, and the case law that this creates could be beneficial for lots and lots of other Second Amendment related cases that have nothing to do with ammunition. So, we're hoping obviously for a good ruling here so that we can have other, positive changes in other laws. But, other people in other states who live in pretty pro-2A places may not feel like they have to get that involved. We've talked about this before, right? Like if you live somewhere where you don't have any of your rights getting trampled on related to the Second Amendment, it might be an issue that's pretty low down on the list for you. But even if you're in these other states, you can pressure your lawmakers, you can pressure folks at your state legislation at the upper levels in your state to fight for Second Amendment rights in other states. So all these states who supported this, lawsuit here in California, there's lots of other pro-2A states that didn't support the lawsuit. So reach out to your legislators and make sure that they're, filing amicus briefs and that there are, progress being made for other state rights because, I think a lot of times we can think just about our state, but what the reality is that if some states start, creating these horrible laws, other states start picking them up, and it builds momentum in a really bad way. So,
well, like we saw when we spoke with Sam, we see the road that Virginia is going down. Right, any state can be one voting election away. From following the blueprint of California. So it's important. It should be important to everybody.
Well, we've also made the case that the DOJ. We've called the Trump administration the most pro-Second Amendment administration in existence. We've also said that is a statement on how lame the other administrations have been.
Right.
But still, his administration they're doing positive things. So the DOJ is a part of this, and I just wanted to. I like the part the DOJ's brief asserts that the laws establishing the background check requirement, quote, do not pass even the laugh test. That's a pretty aggressive statement because they evoke a convoluted board game, not a serious attempt to further a legitimate purpose. The regulation is, quote, designed to burden the exercise of the right to keep and bear arms. That's from Trump's DOJ.
Yeah.
And I think very specifically that's from attorney Harmeet Dillon. I don't know how much Pam Bondi had to do with this, but I am absolutely willing to bet that Harmeet Dillon did have a lot to do with this, and I'm extremely happy that that the DOJ, the federal DOJ, is aggressively going after defending our rights the way the federal government, the proper role of the federal government is to, one of them at least is to defend our rights, and they're doing that. So I liked that.
Yeah. I agree. Good news, although there's still lots of work to be done. But
a lot of work to be done.
A good step in the right direction. Hopefully March goes in our favor.
So the list of the states, before we go, did any of them surprise you guys?
Nope.
No.
Did you see them?
No.
They're all standard, like most of the Midwest except Illinois, which makes sense. I think there was quite a bit of like the northern states, North and South Dakota, I think we're both on there, and some of those ones up there. But yeah, I mean, mostly ones that you would expect: Alaska, Some
Well,
of the South, Alabama, Mississippi.
The only
things
one
like
that's
that.
a little bit surprising, we heard from Sam on what's going on in Virginia.
They were on the list.
They're
yeah.
on the list, but
Right.
I think they got it in just under the wire because the current would not have supported this.
Right.
So I think one of their last acts as, a pro Second Amendment of Virginia was to
That's funny.
submit this brief. Anyway, there you go. Amicus brief or amicus brief.
Amicus amicus.
Okay, so there was a decision. Actually, the decision came out like an hour after we recorded last week's show. So we're about 2 weeks late on this, which happens. We're not professional YouTubers. We record once a week. We trickle things out. But what we try to do, we think the advantage here is rather than get it to you first, we get it to you most accurately. And I wanted to talk about the lawsuit that happened regarding open carry. And it's pretty interesting. I'm seeing a lot of bad information on this. Have you guys seen the coverage on this at all?
Yes.
Yes.
And some people, I've seen some accurate, record. There's some guys that are getting it right. Guys like William over Copper Jacket, are doing a fine job. But there were a number of people who clearly didn't understand exactly what was going on. So let's go into a little bit of depth. The AP story, let's start with that. Appeals panel says California's ban on open carry in more populated counties is unconstitutional. There's a reason that they added that in more populated counties as unconstitutional part, and that's the part that I think a lot of people are getting wrong. A federal appeals panel has ruled that a California law prohibiting open carry of firearms in heavily populated counties is unconstitutional. The ruling was issued Friday by 2 judges on a 3-judge panel. By the way, the 2 judges that ruled in our favor were appointed by Trump. One of the things that Trump did, especially in his first term, is he really, truly has changed a lot of the makeup of the Ninth Circuit. So 2 went our way, 1 did not. The judges found that the state's policy of limiting open carry to counties with a population of less than 200,000 is inconsistent with the Second Amendment. Quote, California's legal regime is a complete ban on open carry in urban areas, the areas of the state where 95% of the people live. That's from the decision. The dissenting judge disagreed and said California could limit open carry in more populated areas because it allows for concealed carry throughout the state. That was a big ongoing debate when they were before the Bruin decision was, look, if you're going to ban concealed carry, you have to allow open carry. Or if you have open carry, then you need to, or if you don't have open carry, then you need to start issuing permits. That was a big debate. This guy didn't read the Bruin decision. This judge is caught in the debate that was going on 10, 15, 20 years ago. So let's talk about it. First off, number 1, it's not in effect. So there is nothing you can do today that you couldn't do before this decision. Let me repeat that. There's nothing you can do legally today that you were unable to do before this decision. This decision did not reverse anything yet. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, these lawsuits, there's a whole process. They're heard by an initial judge, and then you have appeals, and then they're heard by an appellate court, and that's 3 judges, which is where we are here. From there are different options. The other side has the option to appeal. The Ninth Circuit has the option to put more judges in front of it. But even if none of that happens, the appellate court actually takes their decision and says, hey, the first judge, and I'm using layman terms here, the first judge that heard it, here's our decision. You need to change what you said about it. And then it goes into effect. There's a lot of paperwork between, a win and then actual implementation.
Right.
So when the decision comes out, it's almost never immediate. One example of when it was immediate was Freedom Week.
Right.
When Benitez said, hey, you can't ban magazines, and boom, it immediately went, and it caused a bunch of chaos, good chaos.
Good chaos. A lot of us got a lot of magazines.
But they basically said, okay, we need to make sure that never happens again, unfortunately. So there's nothing you can do today that you couldn't do. I said that right, before the decision.
that you couldn't do a week ago.
A week ago.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed legally. You cannot do anything today that you couldn't do before this decision. Okay. Now, here's the other interesting thing. The open carry folks who are passionate, and I get it, I think we should be able to open carry and carry without a permit. But the open carry isn't discussion debate isn't just about open carry. A lot of the times it's open carry versus permit. So the open carry folks aren't just for open carry, they're anti-permit. And the thing that I didn't see a lot of reporting on is if you open carry in these counties, the counties that have fewer than 200,000, you still have to have an open carry permit. So in these counties that have 200,000 or fewer, they were legally allowed to issue open carry permits. Now, I did some looking and some asking and some research, and I couldn't find a single, I don't think anyone has one of these permits. I don't think one's been issued at all, but it's in the decision. So even if it went immediately into effect, and the decision was basically like, look, you can't just allow the counties with 200,000 people. You have to allow all 58 counties. Everybody has to be equal. So even if it did immediately go into effect, let's just say, and this isn't the case, but hypothetically, let's just say that tomorrow this decision was in effect in San Diego County. Well, San Diego has 3.5 million people, right? But boom, now they say, hey, you have to be treated the exact same way as if you live in a 200,000 or fewer county. You would still have to go through the process of getting an open carry permit, which is kind of interesting. And by the way, I spoke with the sheriff's department. They hadn't even heard of an open carry permit. They were like, yeah, we've never been, which makes sense. They've never been even able to issue an open carry permit. So now what does this mean? Well, one of two things is most likely going to happen. Either the state's going to say, hey, we want to appeal. We want more judges to see this. Or the Ninth Circuit is going to say, hey, wait a minute. We don't like what those two judges on the 3-judge panel said. So we're going to take this en banc, and we're going to hear this in front of 11 judges. I think it would be a miracle if this thing survived 11 judges, and I don't know if this is the open carry case that would make it to the Supreme Court. And there's a lot of different reasons for that. But one of the big reasons for that is the fact that there are permits involved, which again, the Bruin case was pretty clear that permits are not unconstitutional, but the subjectivity of issuing these permits is what's unconstitutional. I'm not saying no, I'm saying I don't know. But if I had to guess, I'm not an attorney, this is not legal advice. This doesn't look like I think this case is an excellent precedent. It's a great decision. These two judges are wonderful, and I'm glad we had it. But I think this case is probably going to fizzle. I don't think it's going to go to some kind of appeal. I think we're probably going to lose, and I think that's probably going to be the end of it. I don't think we're going to hear much more about this, unfortunately. What are your thoughts?
The open carry thing, you mentioned something about open carry permit being required in the counties with over or under 200,000 people. And I just didn't, I had never even heard of that. And when I was in Shasta County, because my husband and I have done some hiking up there, we saw people open carrying. And I was like, oh, is it legal here? And I just Googled it, and the internet seemed to say like, yeah, because the county has less than X number of people. But I wonder if they had to go through some kind of like a process.
Well, I wonder if they even had to know they had to go through a process.
Or maybe maybe the sheriffs of every county are just kind of deciding like, we don't care to enforce this permit thing, and we let people open carry in our county. Like, you know how sheriffs can kind of have discretion over what they arrest people for. I don't know.
But the other thing is the open carry, like I have unloaded open carried in unincorporated areas, which is legal. And that doesn't have anything to do with 200,000 people or what county you're in.
Okay.
So if you unloaded open carry in certain unincorporated, I'm trying to make sure I don't
say the wrong
it's
thing.
so nuanced here. In fact, I actually used to carry around an email that I printed out from a state ranger, game warden guy. I emailed him and said, hey man, I need you to confirm this. And he said, yep. And I actually printed that out.
And had
just
it
carry
with
it
you.
with me. Yeah, it was like in a Ziploc bag. But so what I don't know the situation, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering if they just got it wrong. They got it right that they could open carry,
Right.
but not for the reasons
that
they
they
stated.
thought. Yeah, that's interesting because I know Shasta County is super pro 2A. Like back when SB2 was passed and they had that long list of places you couldn't carry. Shasta County, I don't know who exactly how their local government works, but Shasta County voted to not enforce those laws, and they were like, our residents can still carry in bars, we don't care. So it's interesting. Maybe there's just a little bit of like everybody does their own thing. But I had never even heard of an open carry permit, so I wanted to mention that. But yes, go ahead, Alicia. You want to talk about the Blake Spears statement?
Yeah. So Blake Spears, so his statement, as well as, I don't think a lot of people that are kind of giving all of this attention to this release understand the difference between what was presented and stated versus constitutional carry. I think there's
Right.
there's going to be a lot of people that are very confused by that. So there needs to be clarification on that, and that needs to be shared. As far as the statement, I don't know, Dakota, you want to go and read the statement?
Sure. So I don't know if you guys know who Senator Catherine Blake Spear is, but she's in the California State Senate. And so, she puts out statements about all sorts of things related to California law. And this was her statement right after that decision came out. She said, quote, I strongly condemn the Ninth Circuit's decision to strike down California's ban on openly carrying firearms. This ruling is reckless, ignores overwhelming empirical evidence, and will make our communities less safe. Data shows that expanding open carry permits increases the risk of gun violence in public places. Studies of states that weakened public carry laws show higher rates of violent crime and aggravated assault, not deterrence. This decision undermines California's values. Californians deserve laws grounded in evidence and science, not rulings that idolize the Wild West.
That's great. By the way, just to let you know, she used to run the local Brady organization chapter. I guess it was her husband. They actually started the local Brady organization chapter. She's not just
Well, so you'd
on
think
the
she'd
fence.
be a little
She's an
bit
extremist.
more. You would think she'd be a little bit more educated then on what she's saying because she made multiple like untrue claims here,
Right.
including the part that says data shows that expanding open carry permits increases the risk of gun violence. Where is expanding open carry permit? What other states
So
even have that as a thing?
So she's not educated. She's
No, she's not.
indoctrinated,
Right.
right?
Talking points. She's well coached.
Here's
Hasn't
our,
thrown
let's see,
back.
the president, speaking of great quotes, Governor Gavin Newsom,
Oh yeah, that one was great. Too.
podcaster and extraordinaire. Quote, California just got military troops with weapons of war off the streets of our cities, but now Republican activists on the Ninth Circuit want to replace them with gunslingers and return to the days of the Wild West.
It's funny that they're referring to the
Wild
Wild West.
West
as if it's like a bad thing that we don't want to go back to, and it's just kind of a funny thing. It's like, why are we even bringing up the Wild West?
And it didn't really even exist.
And we've
It's
been
a movie.
having guns concealed or open carried in most of the country for most of our history. That's not the Wild West. The Midwest has been open carrying for, decades. Like what? I don't understand.
I don't understand either. It's really ridiculous, and they say ridiculous things. The other thing that's ridiculous about that is when folks on the right or the pro Second Amendment folks or whatever, when they call a court an activist court, the left, clutches their pearls and how can you disrespect the
ever
legal
think?
system?
Yeah.
And now here we got a guy who's running for president, who is the governor of California, who was the mayor of San Francisco at one point. Who is an esteemed podcaster, and he's allowed to say it. How come he's allowed to say it, but we're not allowed?
What we've been touting for years is that the banning of guns, the prevention of law-abiding people from carrying of firearms, that's what's going to make our communities less safe. First of all, not only that, but creating an environment in our state where youth and the indoctrination of people in general creates this thought that firearms are bad, they're evil, not having an openly practiced concept of teaching our youth firearm safety, right? Those are the things that are going to make people unsafe. If this kind of thing comes through and there are issues, I think that's going to be the root and the foundation of issues is people that now have the right, but have not grown up in an environment to where they learned the skills and the safety protocols. That's going to be the danger. And that was created by those attempting to ban the firearms.
By the way, so the ban only you could only open carry in counties that had 200,000 or more?
Less.
200,000 or less, sorry. Guess what percentage of the population of California lives in a county with 200,000 or more?
Maybe 5%.
Other way around. Or
other
more.
way, right?
95.
Is that what you're saying?
95, yeah.
So what percentage of California what percentage of California residents live in a county that has more than 200,000 people?
97%.
I was going to go with the 95.
It's 95%.
95%.
So this is not a reasonable ban. It's not they said, well, gee golly, it only applies to, no, it basically applies to just about
Almost everybody.
Almost every Californian out there. So
interesting times.
It is. By the way, the judge who wrote the decision, he's that same judge.
We like him.
Yeah.
Van Dyke.
Van Dyke, yeah.
He's that same judge that did the
SIG demonstration. If you saw him on the street, would you ever think he's a gun guy? No.
I wouldn't think he was a judge either.
No.
Why do you say that? What does a gun guy look like? Like he's all 5'11" out and like what about him doesn't
he looks
not
like
put you on the spot?
He would rather talk to you about his microscope and
well, but I got to tell you,
he just seems like he's a very wise. I like him a lot, and I like that he is very unassuming in his beliefs. I like it, but he does. He would not have given off that vibe to me, and I'm glad he's here.
If you're a guy who looks like that, I hope you have a gun. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the beauty. When so many people who I'm way past my prime. I'm way past my prime in life. I don't want to fight anybody. I have no desire to. And there's so many more people on the earth today who could best me in fisticuffs, than there were 20 years ago. Plus I shouldn't have to live life that way. Yeah. It really truly is the great equalizer, and I think that more and more people who don't look like gun people are becoming gun people for that very reason. 25 years ago or so, when I first started paying attention to Second Amendment activism, it was really a lot about hunting. It was still a lot about hunting. Yeah. And I remember talking about CCW permits and from people who'd been around fighting the fight, were in positions of leadership, they were like, no, it's never. Stay away from CCWs. We need to talk about tradition. We need to talk about hunting. We need to talk about your grandpappy taking you out back and teaching. And that's not what happened. What really broke this open was self-defense.
That's it.
Anyway, what else? Any other thoughts?
I'm just looking forward to seeing what rolls out from this.
Me too.
Yep.
Well, there you go. So again, open carry, can't do anything that you could do before, but man, what a great decision. So thankful that we have good judges on the Ninth Circuit Court. And stay tuned. Continue to do what you need to do, the activism that you need to engage in order to keep your the rights that you do have, and then recapture the ones that they took away from you. So there you go.